Am I audible and visible?
Very much.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to the CEERA DOJ webinar on protecting citizens' interest in financial frauds. This webinar is conducted by CEERA in association with the Department of Justice, Ministry of Law and Justice under the Pan-India Legal Literacy and Legal Awareness project granted to CEERA. And specifically, this webinar is being conducted under the Designing Innovative Solutions for Holistic Access to Justice, DISHA scheme. We being here together in this webinar is a testament to the fact that we are living in a fast moving, constantly evolving digital age. And I'm sure that post demonetization, and especially since the COVID lockdown, majority of us have shifted to digital transaction. UPI has made our lives much more convenient, and it is easier to keep a track of our transactions digitally. But storing one's bank account details in your phones or apps or merchant websites comes with a set of challenges, and the foremost of them being failing victims to financial frauds. All of us must have received at least one SMS saying that your pre-approved loan is ready, or that you've won a lottery. And these SMS will ask you to click on a link to claim your loan or lottery. And if you do that, there are high chances that your bank account might be wiped clean. So the aim of this webinar is to spread awareness as to what are the rights, liabilities, and remedies available to a citizen or a consumer. And before we move on to the technical sessions, we have Mr. Ashutosh Srivastava with us from the Department of Justice, who is the program manager for the implementation of the DISHA scheme. I welcome Ashutosh sir to the session and request you to share a few words with us.
Good afternoon. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Gayatri ji. Just a minute. Professor Sairam Bhatt, Mr. Jaideep Reddy from Tri-Legal, and Mr. Jaideep Pangal, Law Officer from Punjab National Bank, Mr. Shyam Padman, Advocate, Mr. R.S. Sashi Kumar, Chartered Accountant, CEERA-NLSIU team, distinguished dignitaries of today's webinar, and online and offline participants. On behalf of Department of Justice, Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India, I welcome all of you in today's webinar on protecting citizens' interest in financial frauds. As started by Gayatri ji, in today's world, how vulnerable we are, it's like we're experiencing something different and unique way of indulging. So before that, I would like to briefly talk about our partnership with the CEERA-NLSIU. Based on decade-long experience of implementation of Access to Justice project in various Indian states, Department of Justice has launched a scheme called DISHA, Designing Innovative and Holistic Solutions for Access to Justice. And this scheme is for a period of 2021 to 2022. DISHA aims to merge different access to justice programs implemented by DOJ while scaling to all levels. One of the objectives of DISHA is implementation of pan-India legal literacy and legal awareness. This DOJ has initiated 15 in different states, and in various and this partnership is with various institutions like the service authorities, state commissions, civil society organizations, and academic institutions like NLSIU Bangalore. DOJ is committed to play its role towards protection of rights and entitlements of disadvantaged sections. Under DISHA scheme, tele-law program, Nyaya Bandhu program, and legal literacy programs are making consistent efforts towards making justice accessible for people. And when a common citizen of our country become victim of any crime or face some legal disputes, often he or she doesn't know what to do and where to go. There's a greater need for raising people's awareness at the grassroots level and in a very simple and interesting way. And we are really happy with NLSIU Bangalore, the way they're focusing their intervention on digital legal literacy. Now we all have a device in our hands. I would like to give uh, uh, indispensable. Besides using it for so many transactions, we do amazing during and after COVID lockdown. There's a significant increase in our online transactions, but most of us are not equipped or adequately trained or informed about how to protect ourselves from financial frauds and especially online frauds. On behalf of DOJ, and it's a very good topic for today's webinar, and where uh, our esteemed panelists, our esteemed speakers are going to enlighten all of us how to protect ourselves. And old saying is always good. Prevention is really important, and our preparedness. And as and when we get calls from like unknown or unknown contacts, it's important for us to think, not to immediately respond, and think about it, discuss with your friends, and accordingly, if you feel like it's really it's from a right source, from a true contact, or from a true entity, or from a company or bank, then only you can respond. Otherwise, like a one click, but just by clicking one link, you realize like you have lost a good amount of money. It's really important to discuss this topic. And on behalf of DOJ, Ministry of Law and Justice, Government of India, I want to express my gratitude to incredible team of CEERA and NLSIU. And once again, welcome all the speakers. And they're coming from various fields, and they're really in a place or position to inform us, enlighten us how to protect ourselves. And if we have already become victim, then how to then protect our interests, and how to resolve our disputes or challenges, or losses. Once again, thank you to all of you, online, offline participants. And with these words, I would like to stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. We also have Professor Dr. Sairam Bhatt, Center Coordinator of CEERA and Professor at NLSIU with us. Sir, I request you to share a few words with us about this webinar.
Sure. Thank you, Gayatri. Let me welcome everyone to this very interesting topic, a webinar that I think is of very critical relevance, like Ashutosh ji has already stated. Uh, First of all, I have to thank every speaker who has agreed to speak and share their insights. I think this is more a citizens awareness initiative. This is looking at how we can protect citizens' interest in financial fraud. And I think we are looking at two parts to this webinar. One is internal controls. I'm obviously sure that all the participants understand what internal controls are, how you are aware, how you can actually prevent a financial fraud. Secondly, if already there is a fraud, how or what kind of redressal mechanism do you have to either recover what has already been cheated, or to actually see the role of the regulators. So I think in both these internal versus external, I think it's important that citizens know their rights. To be honest, like Gayatri was rightly saying, we all at some point of time have felt cheated, either if it's offline cheating or an online cheating. So this is something that we all understand, right? But I just want to narrate a very personal example. The reason why I do this is because it's not about just financial fraud, but what I would like to call as financial malpractice. Now, very recently, friends, what I got to know is that, when I opened my Google Pay, I came to know that I have a loan from a bank. Okay. And this is affecting my CIBIL rating. So I took our CEERA team along with me, because I said, if it's not just the webinar we should also understand whether we are being defrauded or not. Now, interestingly, what had happened, friends, is that in Ola, when you have your Ola app, you tend to, like Ashutosh ji said, that we tend to say yes to so many things without understanding what it is. So I had actually agreed for a postpaid money to be paid to Ola. Now, what this has done is Ola has a tie-up with IDFC Bank, and IDFC has given me 25,000 credit so that I can use it on Ola rights. And once I start using it, that will be converted into a loan amount. Now, what was surprising and interesting, friends, is I have never applied to IDFC for a loan. Point number one. Two, that I am not a customer of IDFC at all. But this is the fintech kind of tie-ups that actually get into a debt trap for a citizen. Now, whether knowingly or unknowingly, you would actually have incurred that kind of a personal loan while incurring in or Ola rights. And on that personal loan, you would have paid the interest. Now, all of these, I think, are relevant, because I would not call it fraud, but maybe a kind of a malpractice in which the citizen is probably taken for a ride, and his consent becomes kind of an implied consent for many of these, fintech apps. Today morning, I was also looking at how some of the apps actually give you loan, and how these apps that give you loan are not necessarily the apps that are registered in India. Sometimes they may be registered in India, but they are not actually authorized to actually lend money. So all of these, I think, become critical concern, because as we are in the digital space, more and more, I think there are a lot of business entities that want to take advantage of two things. One, the advantage of ignorance, because we are quite ignorant about our rights. Two, they are also taking advantage of our lack of patience in reading terms and conditions. See, we do not read terms and conditions. Let us all agree. We just download apps. We just say yes. I agree button is always pressing over there. So on the digital front, on the app front, on online front, I think there are a lot of critical concerns. However, I think the most important thing over here is also the sense of a regulator. I think it's very important for all of us to understand that it's the citizens who need a regulator in place. Of course, there are regulators. What is their role, right? How can you report incidents such as these? What kind of actions are expected, and how you can finally get compensated in case there is a loss? I think these are very, very important and critical concerns. I think every citizen has a right to know. And I think these are important factors that I think we should take into account during this webinar. I'm sure there are so many other issues and case studies that our speakers will definitely get to our forefront. So thank you everyone for agreeing and being with us today afternoon. Thanks also to the Department of Justice, under whose aegis we are doing this program. Without their support, I don't think we'll be able to do a citizen-centric kind of a webinar. So thanks to everyone. Welcome, and I'll hand you over back to my colleague, Gayatri.
Am I audible? Am I audible?
Very much. Yes.
Thank you, sir. With that, we'll move on to the technical sessions. I'm sorry, I'm keeping my video off because I'm facing a little bit of technical issues. We'll move on to the second technical session because the speaker for the first technical session hasn't joined it. He'll be joining us soon. So the second session is on the role of RBI and banking institutions in the prevention of, spreading awareness of, and dealing with the aftermath of financial frauds. We have Mr. Jaydev Pankal, Law Officer at Punjab National Bank, with us to enlighten us on this. He is an alumnus of Delhi University and Kurukshetra University. Currently, he handles service matters, consumer disputes, and other matters in courts by and against PNB, and also provides legal advice on the issues referred by various divisions and departments of banks. Welcome to the session, sir. Over to you. Sir, could you unmute yourself?
You have to stop the screen sharing and unmute yourself. Yes.
Thank you, Gayatri. Thank you, Sri Ram sir, for this opportunity. Let me just start. Now in this part, we are going to discuss the role of RBI and financial institutions in financial frauds with citizens. So what role RBI has to play in such matters we are going to discuss in this part. So as we all are aware that RBI acts as a regulatory body for financial institution, and Reserve Bank of India in this capacity has issued a notification dated 6th of July 2017, which we will be discussing in this part. So this notification is mandatory in nature, and it is titled as the Customer Protection Limiting Liability of Customers in Unauthorized Electronic Banking Transactions. So it is applicable on all the scheduled commercial banks, including regional rural banks and all small finance banks and payment banks such as Paytm, PhonePe, Google Pay, etc. So this notification almost grants complete protection to to the citizens of or the customers of the bank in case of electronic financial fraud happened with them, subject to two exceptions. So in those two cases also, the upper limit or the maximum liability of a customer is fixed irrespective of the amount that is involved in the fraud. So broadly, the electronic banking transaction, we may say, is divided into two categories. One is a remote one, or the online payment transactions, where the transaction that do not require physical payment instrument to be presented at the point of the transactions. Transactions like transaction done through internet banking or mobile banking, etc. And second type of such electronic banking transaction is face-to-face or the proximity payment transactions, which require physical payment instruments such as card or mobile phone. So this notification covers both type of these payments done through electronic means. So the RBI says that few things are to be done on the part of the citizen to effectively deal or prevent the instances of the financial frauds. So RBI says that get the email or the mobile number registered with the bank for instant alert for all kind of electronic banking transactions. So all kind of electronic banking transactions, you will get invariably you will get a SMS or email alert if you have got yourself registered with the concerned bank. Second thing, RBI says that do not share passwords, pins, OTP, CVV or card details with anyone. Even someone is purporting to be the bank or the RBI official. In that case also, you don't have to share your password or anything mentioned here in above. Or second thing, it says that in case of fraudulent transactions, inform your bank immediately because if you reports about that fraudulent transaction within 3 days of its occurrence or the alert made to you, and you have not shared your payment credential, in that case, you have to bear no loss and the entire amount would be compensated or refunded refunded to you by your bank within 10 working days. So we are now going to see how and how to report on what are the customer's liability in case of electronic banking transactions. So as per the above discussed notification, if a citizen or a customer have his or her mobile or email number registered with the bank, then he or she will mandatorily get SMS or email alerts for the electronic banking transactions, thereby getting alert and notice of the unauthorized transaction. So any unauthorized transaction must be reported to the bank at the earliest after its occurrence. Because the time taken to notify the bank, the higher will be the risk of loss to the bank. So as per the notification mentioned above, RBI has mandatory for the banks to provide 24/7 access through multiple channels for reporting unauthorized transactions. So in case you don't have to wait for to visit the branch or personally for that such things. Or RBI has further made it mandatory for banks to instantly respond by reply to the SMS or email alerts. So if you will reply to SMS or the email alert for the electronic banking transactions, you can report that transaction to the bank. Further, RBI has further prescribed that to lodge the complaints with specific option or should be provided on the home page of the website. So, and this is done because the time taken in reporting the unauthorized transaction is important in determining the extent of a citizen customer liability. So, as we discussed that there is zero liability in few cases and there is some limited liability in another case. So, a customer entitlement to zero liability shall arise where the unauthorized transaction occurs in the following events. where there is a contributory fraud or negligence or deficiency on the part of the bank. And this is irrespective of whether or not the transaction is reported by the customer. So if a customer do not report any transaction which involves contributory fraud or negligence or the deficiency on the part of the bank, in that case, it is not required to report that transaction to the bank, and still he occurs no liability or zero liability in that case. So second is the thing where third party breach, where the deficiency lies neither with the bank nor with the customer, but lies somewhere in the system. So the customer notifies the bank within 3 working days of receiving the communication from the bank regarding the unauthorized transactions. So if you get a email or SMS alert about any unauthorized electronic transactions, and you report it within 3 working days to the bank, in that case also there is zero liability of a customer, and the entire amount or the loss has to be borne by the bank. Second is the case where there is a limited liability of a customer, where he has to bear certain portion or the maximum amount in case of his own negligence, where the customer or the citizen has shared the payment credential with the for such payment, and the entire loss has to be borne by the customer till the time he has reported the transaction to the bank. And after reporting the transaction to the bank, he do not have to bear anything, and if any amount is deducted thereafter, the whole amount is to be refunded by the bank or compensated by the bank for that. And in cases where responsibility of unauthorized banking transactions lies neither with the bank nor with the customer, as we discussed earlier, but in that case, the customer had to report within 3 working days. But if he do not reports within 3 working days, then and he reports within 4 to 7 working days after receiving the communication from the bank by SMS or email alert. So in that case, customer liability is maximum liability is defined by the RBI, and in that case, the customer has to borne the amount mentioned in the table mentioned hereinafter, or the amount transaction amount, whichever is lower. So maximum liability of a customer so Shankar sir is asking, sometimes due to network issues or the regions beyond the control of customer, SMS alert is not received. In such cases, 3 days will be counted for date of unauthorized transaction. No, sir. In that case, it will be counted from the date of the receiving of the SMS or email alert. So email alert is, I guess, is not dependent on the network issue and all. So I believe it will be from the date of time of the email you receive at your email address or SMS. So maximum liability in this case is if a person is having basic saving and basic deposit account. So his maximum liability in case he do not report within 3 working days and reports within 4 to 7 working days. In that case, his maximum liability is 5,000 rupees only. In other saving accounts as shown, like prepaid or cash credit or credit card up to limit, whose limit is 5 lakh, the maximum liability of a citizen or a customer is 10,000 rupees only. And in other accounts such as cash credit or draft or credit cards having limit above 5 lakhs is 25,000 rupees. So it's a upper limit prescribed by the RBI. And if the transaction value is less than this amount, then in that case he or she has to borne the maximum amount of the transaction amount. and if the transaction amount exceeds this amount, then this amount shown against the each saving account is to be borne by the customer. So now the question arises, what if there is a delay in reporting beyond 7 working days? So in such cases, the notification provides that the citizen's liability shall be determined as per the board approved policy of the individual bank. So in that case, board individual policy of the bank's comes into play. And but in overall liability of the customer in third party breaches is also fixed, and where their deficiency lies neither with the bank nor with the customer, but lies somewhere in the system. So it is summarized in table number 2 as shown on the screen. If the deficiency lies neither with the bank nor with the customer, and the customer informs the bank within 3 working days, then there is no liability on his part, and the whole of the amount or the complete loss is to be compensated or reimbursed by the concerned bank. And if he reports within 4 to 7 working days, in that case, the transaction value or the amount mentioned in table number 1, as we discussed earlier, will be will be borne by the concerned victim citizen. And if it is reported after 7 working days, so it is regulated by the bank's board approved policy and depends and vary to banks. So what if the fraud is reported and proven? So in that case, the bank has to pay the entire amount to the customer citizen, because whenever a customer makes an online payment, there are intermediary platforms like PayBank, PayerBank, payment gateways, and this process has to be secured and encrypted. And if any fraud happens during this process, the bank has to refund the entire amount to the customer or the citizen, provided he or she reports within 3 working days of getting alert for the unauthorized transaction. So how long, now the question comes, how long it takes to get the money back? So after the bank is informed of the fraud, it will take around 10 days for the money to be credited back to the victim's citizen account, as per the RBI notification we are discussing right now. Yeah, and in cases where the liability of the customer has to be decided, like if there is liability on his part, if he has shared any payment credential, or he reports within 4 to 7 days, the complaint has to be addressed by the bank within 90 days. So there is 10 days working time for the bank to settle in case there is no liability to be decided of the individual citizen. And it further prescribes that banks may also at their discretion decide to waive off any customer's liability in case of unauthorized electronic banking transaction, even in case of customer's negligence. So it is a discretionary power given to the banks to waive off all the liability of a customer and whole amount to be even in case of negligence of the customer. So further, RBI says that the liability of a customer, if any, is to be established within such time as may be specified in the board's board approved policy, but it should not exceed in any case 90 days from the date of receipt of the complaint, and the customer is compensated as per the liability herein above discussed. And where the bank is unable to resolve the complaint or determine the customer's liability, if any, within 90 days, the compensation as prescribed as per the notification is to be paid by the bank or the financial institution. And it further prescribes that in case of debit card bank account, the customer does not suffer any loss of interest. Like if I have been cheated for 5 lakhs and it takes 60 days for resolution of my complaint. So in that case, I will not suffer the interest that need to be or that had to be earned on that part, on that amount. And in case of credit card, the customer does not bear any additional burden of interest on the amount involved in the fraud till the time the compensation is paid to the victim. So as we are aware that on credit cards, there are a lot of there is huge part of the rate of interest is high on higher side. So in that case, if he reports and there is no liability of his as per the policy, so in that case, he don't have to bear any additional burden of interest, or the whole amount would be refunded back or credited back to his account without any burden of interest on him. So now comes the part about the burden of proof. So the burden of proving customer's liability in case of unauthorized banking transaction shall lie on the bank as per this notification. Earlier, the customer had to prove that he or she was the victim, but now by this notification, the RBI has put this burden on the bank to prove that he or she is not a victim of fraud, is a victim of fraud. So if the victim informs the bank within a stipulated time of 3 days of financial fraud, the onus falls on the bank to prove the customer has not been a victim of the fraud. So now we have discussed the policy part, but what if that policy is not followed, or that no complaint is of a citizen regarding the fraudulent transaction or complaint made is not redressed? So in that case, the citizen or the victim of the fraud may complain to the internal ombudsman appointed by the individual bank. So in every bank there is a internal ombudsman to look after such grievances. And if even after complaining to the internal ombudsman, if there is no redressal, then the citizen can file complaint before RBI ombudsman as per the RBI integrated ombudsman scheme against entities regulated by the RBI. In addition to above, the citizen or the customer or the victim may lodge a complaint at CP Grams portal of the Government of India for its resolution. Now, what we have to discuss that in such cases, what else can be done other than this policy? So we have a national crime reporting portal, which is online website by the Government of India to help victims or complainants to report cyber complaints, including cyber and online frauds. This portal takes complaint pertaining to cyber crimes. And this portal has special focus on cyber crimes against women and children. So how we can report a cyber fraud? The victim can reach out to the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal through helpline number 1930 to register any complaint about cyber crime, including cyber fraud. Or the victim of the fraud also contact the nearest police station to file the complaint. Or the victim can also file complaint through cybercrime.gov.in. This is the online website of this cybercrime reporting portal. So this is the measures taken by the banks or the RBI in such matters. So I have.
So we have 4 questions in the Q&A box. The first question is there any liability with the victim if it is reported beyond 7 days?
It is to be decided, and it is to be decided by the bank's board approved policy of the individual banks. So every bank has a board approved issues for such matters, and it get decided by that policy only.
The next question is, what if the SMS or email both don't come and the customer gets to know from the credit card statement, which comes before a payment is due?
In that case, the time you get to know about it, the cyber fraud, that counts. and if you don't get any SMS or email, then you have to just complain to the bank within getting knowledge of 3 working days, and thereafter the burden is on the bank to prove that the SMS or email both came on your registered number or email ID. So if they will discharge their burden of proof, then in that case it will be on you to show that you didn't get any SMS or email, else it will be paid by the bank, as if in case they won't be able to discharge their burden of proof.
So the next question is FIR by the customer also necessary? Because sometimes the bank asks the customer to provide copy of FIR, and the banks also state that they will wait for the charge sheet and then take action regarding refund.
No FIR or no any such claim if any bank has taken any insurance policy regarding such matters. So no wait for the insurance claim or and no FIR is registered for under this policy or under this notification. You just simply have to report to the bank within 3 working days, and if you have not shared any payment credential with for these transactions, then in that case you have to bond even not a single penny for this.
The last question is regarding, where are these details available? For that, I urge all the participants to please read the FAQ that was shared with the meeting schedule and invite. We've tried to comprehensively cover all of these questions in the FAQ and have linked these documents and these portals within the FAQ itself. And if you have any further details, feel free to reach out to us. And thank you so much, Jaydeep sir, for enlightening us with different, the liability of customers, and what are the remedies available to customers, how the customers can approach the bank, and if in case the bank doesn't respond on time, how they can seek remedy from the ombudsman. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
We'll move on to the next session. This session is on the cyber law perspectives of financial frauds, and we have Mr. Jaydeep Reddy, counsel at Trilegal, wherein his focus is on fintech, e-commerce, gaming, data, and related areas. He is also visiting faculty at NLSIU, where he offers a paper on law and policy on crypto and blockchain. He's an alumnus of National University of Juridical Sciences, Kolkata, and University of California. He has also written extensively on disruptive technologies. Welcome to the webinar, sir, and I hand over the session to you.
Thanks, Gayatri. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. And I also enjoyed the presentation by my namesake, Jaydeep. So I'll cover a few allied areas on online financial frauds. I'm going to share my screen. I think Mr. Jaydeep, you may need to stop sharing because I am told I cannot screen share while the other participant is sharing. Thank you. Is this visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'll give an overview of the cyber law aspects around some of the online financial fraud scene. Of course, the RBI aspects are arguably the most important in this area, but there are a lot of other aspects as well. So firstly, just to get a sense of what online financial frauds are and what is the scale of them. Because of the wave of digitization, one generally, along with the benefits that these new technologies are bringing, there is also a potential for them to be exploited by bad actors. And for instance, I have just on a lighter note, I have a Google alert set for Information Technology Act. And most of the daily updates I get are how somebody has been scammed through UPI or through credit card fraud or similar types of frauds. Those are among the more common cases under the IT Act and are happening every day. And several of us have come across friends, family, relatives, and maybe ourselves who have seen some of these scamsters try to approach and dupe people through various means. In terms of statistics, the RBI annual report 22-23 mentioned that there were about 13,000 plus fraud cases, and of which around half were in the digital payments category. In terms of quantum, the amount is at around rupees 276 crore in the financial year 2023. So it's a significant area on which one has to be concerned about, both from a public interest perspective, as well as obviously if any individual user is affected in terms of understanding how they can achieve some recourse. Here are some different types of frauds that one comes across quite often. The first one is phishing or vishing. So you would often receive some SMSs or other calls where the fraudsters very intelligently tries to solicit your personal information and sensitive personal information. So some of them may be very obvious that they are unauthorized message, but some of them are done in a very sophisticated manner. So for instance, one of the instances that has become prevalent of late is that a new employee joins a workplace and they get a WhatsApp message from an unknown number saying that I am so and so from this company, who is generally a very senior person in the company. So they will take the name of a senior person and say, can you give me a call, or can you share your Google Pay details or things like that, where obviously a new employee in a company would be keen to follow the instructions of a very senior person and possibly could get duped in that manner. Then, of course, you have identity theft, where if the KYC documents are leaked and compromised, they can be used to create accounts on platforms. Right. So, for instance, you have sometimes accounts being created in false persons' names on it could be bank accounts, it could be stockbroking accounts, it could be crypto exchange accounts, where the ID documents of a different person are submitted, and then the KYC check is falsely passed. Then you have various UPI related scams. For instance, on some of these classifieds websites, when somebody posts an ad, they will immediately get a call expressing interest in that product within a few minutes. And then they will be asked for their UPI details or some way of getting their UPI PIN with a promise to pay some advance or pay some amount. But unknowingly, the person divulges the UPI PIN. And as soon as you've divulged your UPI PIN, it is as good as giving a blank check in terms of UPI to a person to compromise UPI. Because UPI has a transaction limit, and there are third-party apps have various safeguards around UPI. For instance, if you make a Google Pay payment, in addition to the UPI PIN, your location will be assessed to see that maybe it's not from a suspicious in a suspicious context. So there are some checks and balances, but these instances have been occurring on a fairly regular basis. You also have, for instance, the SIM swapping and cloning. So where basically somebody is able to cancel a SIM and get a new SIM with the same number reissued. They may be able to con the person into canceling their SIM, or they may cancel the person's SIM, making that person believe that there is actually a reason to cancel it, and then go and get a new SIM issued with the same number. And once you get a new SIM issued with the same number, then you have access to any OTPs that are received by that person. So that could be another way that people are using. You also have fake apps or imitator apps where they may be trying to use a popular app's name, or they may be having a very generic name which is related to some common catchphrases like chat GPT or other kind of common catchphrases which incentivize a person to download the app, and then they may take wide permissions on the user's device, and that will then result in them being able to access sensitive information from the user. So again, public USB ports, there have been some foreign governments, in fact, which have warned against this, where if you go into a public building and try and charge your phone in a USB port, there are chances that that USB port may be compromised, and your device which you are connecting to that USB port may actually get corrupted. Now, coming to some of the key applicable laws, the cyber law perspectives are that the IT Act, the Information Technology Act, and the IPC are some of the common sections invoked against online digital fraud. This is in addition to some of the RBI recourses which are there. But the RBI recourses are more to enable consumers to recover the amounts quickly and with less inconvenience. But in the case of larger frauds, or where there is something that has to be prosecuted in terms of bad actions, proceedings are generally initiated under the Information Technology Act and the IPC. Particularly the cheating provision of IPC. There is also impersonation provision, cheating by impersonation. Then you have the Information Technology Act provisions on computer-related offenses and cheating by personation and others. So generally, if you see any financial fraud or banking-related fraud, often you will have these two laws invoked, and these are criminal offenses, which usually section 43 and 66 are read together. The offenses under section 66 and 66D are cognizable and bailable, and the slide here contains the maximum penalties of imprisonment and fine. What is important to note is other sectoral regulators, not just the RBI, have issued various guidelines against online fraud. and cybersecurity. So the insurance regulator, there is a brief overview here. SEBI for the securities market. Just while we're on SEBI, one thing to note, which is a key topic of late, is this topic of influencers, which is persons online who may be giving investment related advice. SEBI has taken a keen interest in regulating those kinds of activities, as well as prosecuting some activities which it believes to be against consumer protection. So there is a huge ecosystem of not just on publicly available portals like Twitter, etc., but also channels on Telegram, WhatsApp, and other modes where financial advice is given, and SEBI is interested in regulating those. Those are not frauds per se. Some of them may be, some of them may not be, but those are SEBI sees those as potentially causing consumer harm. From a Companies Act perspective, this is in terms of serious frauds, which is large-scale frauds that are perpetrated by companies. There is a serious frauds investigating office, which is actually tasked with this. Now, another set of laws which are used, and these are particularly used for so-called pyramid and Ponzi schemes, are the Banning of Unregulated Deposit Schemes Act, which is a 2019 act, which says that basically any deposit which is not specifically regulated under any other law, like the RBI and SEBI related laws, for instance, is banned and is prohibited. So basically, the implication of that is that this was intended to address some of the larger Ponzi schemes across the country, which were not specifically banned by another law. Right. A related law to this is SEBI's collective investment scheme law, where these are generally targeted at lower income groups who are promised high interest in a short amount of time, and money is collected from a large number of people, and in fact those interests are paid out in the first couple of months, and so the trust of the consumer is gained when they actually receive those astronomical returns, and then they continue putting money, at which point the perpetrators of the scheme just disappear or are unable to pay back. Right. The key of obviously the biggest example is the Sahara case, but also various other cases since then, including IMA, Jewels, etc., on which proceedings are ongoing. Related to that is the Price Chits Act, which is also used in various prosecutions against some of these Ponzi and pyramid schemes. Coming to one of the more new age ones was something called the Gain Bitcoin scheme, which only in name was related to Bitcoin, but was actually a fraudulent scheme or allegedly fraudulent scheme using the name of cryptocurrency, which we'll come to, where various schemes have used the name of cryptocurrency, but have actually misappropriated the amounts themselves. And the consumers, when putting money into those, have not actually bought cryptocurrency, but have just bought some units sold by the promoters. So there was a, I think, 2,000 crore plus scheme by an enterprise called Gain Bitcoin, which was perpetrated by one Amit Bhardwaj, late Amit Bhardwaj. And proceedings were initiated again under various laws, including, I believe, the Price Chits Act, which is a law banning price chits and money circulation schemes, which is just in common parlance, without getting into a lot of detail, your Ponzi and pyramid schemes. In addition to that, one thing that is maybe less known is that there are state laws on protection of the interests of depositors. So each state has a separate law on that. So those regulate deposits not governed by the RBI Act. Some precautions, of course, none of these are coming from any law per se, but just some precautions which could help against the common financial frauds is not clicking on any unknown and unverified links, checking that any domain name is HTTPS rather than just HTTP. That means it's encrypted. Not sharing confidential information, including your password, card details, CVV, OTP, etc., with a person who pretends to be from a bank or from a other institution. For instance, there was a person in my neighborhood who received a call saying that they are from the electricity department, the local electricity department, and if certain amount is not paid immediately, the electricity will be disconnected, and that there was a delay in payment of the bill, and this is a fine for the delay. And the lady, being an elderly lady, got quite flustered and actually shared some details and also made a payment. Also, the apps that you download, one has to be careful whether it's actually the app you're intending to download or some copycat app, as well as any app taking a lot of permissions on your device, such as reading your SMS, having your camera access and things like that. One has to be quite cautious, because these apps have been used to blackmail people by taking the camera access and clicking sensitive photos, etc., and then blackmailing people. Some other precautions when using an ATM, there are some precautions like just looking around to ensure no devices attached near the card insertion slot to cover your PIN. And the other thing is not sharing identity details relating to your SIM card, being careful on the cancelling and reissue of your SIM card, not believing that you need to scan a QR code to receive money, using two-factor authentication wherever possible, and changing passwords at regular intervals and setting up a strong password, which generally, the longer the password and the better mix that you have of numbers, letters, and special characters is considered a stronger password. Just on a lighter note, Mark Zuckerberg's Twitter password a few years ago, which was hacked, was da da da, DADADA. So somebody was able to hack that. So that's just a example of a password not to use. If one's phone is stolen, obviously the phone is the center of a lot of our financial profile in terms of receiving OTPs, etc. So one should be quite vigilant to block the SIM card, try to use the Find My Device feature, consider the criminal complaint. And also there is a CEIR, Central Equipment Identity Register, which provides a service of blocking a lost or stolen phone. Just an overview of some frauds pertaining to crypto assets or virtual digital assets, right? Because like the internet, which has a lot of potential to be used for positive means, it also has the potential to be used for negative means and frauds. So one has seen that people use different types of negative activities related to, or carry out different types of negative activities related to crypto assets. One of which is, of course, as I said, impersonating a person and creating an account on a crypto exchange, and then carrying out some malicious activity where basically let's say a person's bank account is compromised and their ID details are also compromised. The money may be sent from that person's account into the crypto exchange wallet of the person, which has newly been created. Then certain cryptocurrencies may be purchased on the exchange, and then the cryptocurrencies may be sent to an unknown address, which is an address basically controlled by the fraudster. So this is a way where it leaves the trail of the banking system and goes into the crypto wallet system. And the way that works is there is a public blockchain ledger for each crypto asset, where one can trace the entire set of transactions associated with a particular token. And one can trace the quantum and time of the transaction, but not the real identity of the user without deeper forensic analysis. So it's not that these transactions cannot be traced. It is just that there's deeper forensic analysis required. So for instance, suppose you have compromised somebody's bank account and the amount is transferred to a different bank account. It becomes very straightforward for an agency to go and make a request to the second bank account, to the second bank. But of course, money from that account can be withdrawn by ATM, and then it becomes cash and difficult to trace. But then again, there are limits on the ATM withdrawals. Now here, the way some fraudsters have been using it is that instead of just moving the money to some different bank account, they use it to purchase cryptocurrencies, which are then sent to an unknown wallet address. Now, the agencies then have to spend their time and resources to actually carry out forensic analysis to trace that. The advantage of the blockchain system is that all transactions are publicly available and verifiable. But there is some forensic effort required to find out who is the person controlling a particular blockchain address. There have been several instances where agencies abroad and even agencies in India have been able to carry out those forensic techniques. And the new development on that is that crypto platforms have been brought under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, where they are reporting entities who are required to report each transaction. And also, if they are allowing crypto wallet deposits and withdrawals, they need to verify the identity of the user, as well as collect the details of the person to whom that user is sending a transaction, similar to a wire transfer. So suppose there is a user on an exchange who wants to send 1 Bitcoin to an outside address. They will need to input the beneficiary name and other beneficiary details which will now make the investigation for law enforcement authorities a lot easier. That is the hope, and this is coming on the back of the Financial Action Task Force recommendations to all countries. The other type of crypto asset fraud is where there is a, as I said, Ponzi scheme pretending to be a type of new crypto asset where there is really no blockchain or no token in the sense of Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., but simply some name given, like your gain Bitcoin is just a name, and money is collected in the sense of in the false promise of issuing trader just does not pay back. In the sense, in terms of reporting of an electronic fraud, your general flow is that your first recourse is against the financial institution with whom you're dealing, provided there is a relevant financial institution involved, which usually there is in an online context. So either your bank or your payment system provider or possibly your stockbroking platform, one would make a complaint to them. And then the escalation is generally to the regulator. So as the previous speaker outlined, that there is an ombudsman scheme that RBI has, not just for banks, but also for payment systems. And then finally, one can approach judicial fora as well, to the extent of either filing a complaint before the magistrate or filing a consumer complaint. So the Supreme Court has held that banks are subject to the Consumer Protection Act, and customers of banks are consumers under the Consumer Protection Act. And then, of course, one also has recourse to file an FIR or a police complaint, which would invoke the provisions of the IT Act and the IPC, among other laws. One development of late that has been quite helpful to various people is this Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center has set up the Cybercrime Reporting Portal. So cybercrime.gov.in is a portal where one can file a complaint online, and that will be looked at by the relevant police station. And one can also track the status of the complaint. So that is something that we have seen a few people take recourse to, and the police actually then needs to act on those complaints, which would avoid some of the friction associated with the physical complaint. This is not strictly financial fraud related, but in terms of any compromise of the computer resource, it amounts to a cybersecurity incident, and then there is a authority which is to monitor that, and reporting of cybersecurity incidents has to be done to the Computer Emergency Response Team. This is generally the obligation of the organization whose resource has been compromised. Yeah, I'll conclude on that note, and happy to answer any questions.
Yes, so we have around 5 questions in the Q&A box. Shall I read out?
Yeah.
So the first question
seen it.
Okay, yes.
Should we do all the financial transactions on PC and desist using mobile? Is Wi-Fi, particularly for public place, too dangerous? and what are the precautions for WhatsApp users? So PC versus mobile is not the answer to prevent fraud. Yes, there are ways in which mobile can be exploited more, but PC can be equally exploited through, for instance, befriending a person on social media and then convincing them to share sensitive details or transfer money. That has been one of the types of frauds. So that can happen even on PC, but of course one has to be vigilant on both media. Wi-Fi of a public place, yes, all security experts recommend that you don't do sensitive transactions or enter sensitive details when working on Wi-Fi of a public place, particularly where it is an open and unprotected Wi-Fi without any password or login. For WhatsApp, one obviously has to be vigilant again. There is a method to report suspicious messages and suspicious persons through WhatsApp. But of course, if there is a message coming from an unknown number, one has to be very careful on replying or clicking any link. Mr. Gokhale's question may need some more detailed analysis, so I'll skip that in the interest of time, but happy to connect offline. As far as the repealing of IPC and IT Act, IPC is not a specific law for the online domain and generally has been recognized to be a sound criminal law. Rather, there are discussions to replace the IT Act with a new law known as the Digital India Act. Now, what are the contents of that act is yet to be made public. There are some presentations that the Minister of State, Dr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, has made on that. But one has to see what will be the contents of that new law. But that is the announcement from the government that they are looking at replacing the IT Act with the Digital India Act, which will be more in tune with the times. Regarding Google Play Store, again, one has to verify the app developer and details of the app. Just because it's on Play Store, yes, that is one safeguard, but then one also has to do their own due diligence. And for PML Act, PML is based on the concept of predicate offenses. So one would file a complaint under a provision, which could be an IPC provision or others. And if there is a suspicion of money laundering, the Enforcement Directorate would then register a case based on that offense, which then becomes a separate the proceeding. So PML is based on the concept of predicate offenses. There are certain scheduled offenses which are there in the PMLA, and suppose there's a complaint against or FIR registered under that predicate offense, then the ED can take up a separate PMLA case based on that. Just a quick note on Mr. Gokhale's question is the SIM may be blocked, but if there is some compromise of your online credentials, those may still be used. So one may want to change their passwords and change their PINs of all your accounts on all the financial institutions. Regarding the new question that personal information and private information is misused by banks. So RBI has a detailed set of guidelines that banks are fiduciaries to the users and have a fiduciary duty. So generally banks are required to be careful with that customer information, and there are standards around how to deal with that as well.
Thank you, sir. It was a very
Thank you.
informative session. We don't really get to hear about frauds pertaining to digital assets or crypto assets in a workshop or a webinar on financial fraud. So thank you for sharing those aspects that are not usually discussed. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting.
Our next session is on consumer law remedies for financial frauds. And the speaker for this session is Advocate Shyam Padman. He's the founding partner of Shyam Padman Associates. In addition to practicing at the Supreme Court and High Court of Kerala, he also practices at various consumer fora. He is an eminent advocate with more than 30 years of standing at the bar and is widely recognized techno, legal, and medico-legal consultant. He is an alumnus of Government Law College, Kozhikode. He pursued his LLM in tax laws from Calicut University and post-graduation in medical law and ethics from NLSIU, Bangalore. He often engages in classes, seminars, and discussions, and is also a published author. Recently, his name has been proposed for designation as senior advocate in the Kerala High Court. Welcome, sir, to the session. Over to you.
Thank you very much. The topic that has been assigned to me today is consumer law remedies for financial fraud. Before I start my session, let me first congratulate the organizers for this wonderful initiative. And thank you for finding it fit to have accommodate me in this program. Consumer law remedies for financial fraud. Before we go into that topic, I'll just refer to the definition or the meaning given to financial fraud in the Q&A. That is deceptive activities carried out by individuals or organizations with intention to make unjust enrichment, indulging in misrepresentation, manipulation, or theft of funds, assets, or sensitive information. Where does Consumer Protection Act or consumer laws fit in? Because we talk about deception, we talk about individuals and organizations indulging in that. We also mention about manipulation, misrepresentation. Now, an act which had only 31 sections, that's the Consumer Protection Act 1986. Now it has become an act with 107 sections with new authorities, etc., which has been built into it. Now, before I proceed further, a question that was put during the first session by Rajendra Singh, whether Consumer Protection Act is in addition to or in substitution, etc. I first refer to Section 100 of the new Act, which is pari materia replica of Section 3 of the 1986 Act. This Act shall be in addition to and not in derogation of the provisions of any other law for the time being in force. So this is an additional remedy. I'll say common man's remedy, quicker, cheaper remedy that's available, and a judicious use of this enactment with the strong provisions that has been built in the 2019 Act. This will be a great weapon in the hands of this, I'll call it this unorganized sector, because consumers are being exploited because they are not organized. They don't have at least this sort of forum, at least bring persons together, educate them. And the three limbs are awareness, avoidance, and then management. So there will be 101 laws in the country, but unless and until you are aware of that, unless and until you are able to use it, what consequence are all these laws? So let's congratulate again the organizers for taking this initiative of spreading the message to the grassroots even, and also encouraging the question and answer wherein they are able to interact with the speakers also. It's a wonderful thing. Now, for the first time, we know what a consumer is, we know what consumer rights are, but it was given a statutory recognition by way of incorporation into a section in the 2019 Act. If I may refer to Section 2(9), wherein it is consumer rights includes, the way in which it is worded, it is not confined to what the section is. It says that all these and even more. Consumer rights includes the right to be protected against the marketing of goods, products, or services which are hazardous to life and property, the right to be informed about the quality, quantity, potency, purity, standard, and price of goods, products, or services, as the case may be, so as to protect the consumer against unfair trade practices, the right to be assured, wherever possible, access to a variety of goods, products, or services at competitive prices, the right to be heard and to be assured that consumers' interests will receive due consideration at appropriate fora, the right to seek redressal against unfair trade practice or restricted trade practice or unscrupulous exploitation of consumers, and the right to consumer awareness. Now, two strong authorities are there in the new act. One is in Chapter 3, which is the Central Consumer Protection Authority, and the earlier consumer fora, which has now been nomenclatured as Consumer Commission, district level, state level, and the national level in Chapter 4. Now, Chapter 3 essentially deals with class action. It is not for ventilating personal grievances. If an unfair trade practice or a restrictive trade practice or an unfair contract affects a class or it affects the general public, then a class action can be had. The person who is initiating need not be affected. He need not come under the definition of consumer. He need not hire the services. He need only file a complaint, or the authorities constituted can take suo motu action. So I'll make myself clear that I'll be first addressing on the class action for the first 10 or so minutes. Then I'll come to the individual action, which is possible. It is a bit restrictive in the sense like there are parameters for who can approach. So at times you may feel stifled, but remember, it is section 100 is there. This is in addition to. So this is not the panacea for all the maladies we are facing. So this is an additional remedy. It is a special statute, so it will have its own restrictions. Otherwise, it will be unwieldy. It may not serve its purpose. Maybe that is what the persons who were behind the statute thought of even in 1986. Now, the definition section is same for both Chapter 3 and Chapter 4. So you'll find the definition of complaint, complainant, consumer, unfair contract, unfair trade practice, restricted trade practice, everything in common. But the avenues or the fora where you can get it adjudicated or your grievance redressed is a bit different. Once you understand that nuance of what exactly and where exactly to go, I think the Consumer Protection Act 2019 can be demystified very easily. My endeavor would be to that extent, so that the common man or the person who are affected by this deceptive and other practices being indulged by the corporates and even individuals, how they can get redress. Now let us see, what do you file? We file a complaint. So what is a complaint? Just let us see what a complaint is. It is under section 2(6). I'm just trying to simplify it, so I'll not be burdening you with the different sections because we have got 107 sections which I'll not be running through anyway. Complaint means any allegation in writing made by a complainant. Please see, it is not by a consumer but by a complainant for obtaining any relief provided by or under this act that an unfair contract or unfair trade practice or a restricted trade practice has been adopted by any trader or service provider. The goods brought by him or agreed to be brought by him suffer from one or more defects. The services hired or availed or agreed to be hired by or availed by him suffer from any deficiency. A trader or a service provider, as the case may be, has charged goods in excess of what has been agreed, etc., etc. Then including product liability. Now, let us also have a look at who a complainant is. Complainant is defined under 2(5) because a complaint can be filed by only a complainant. Complainant means one of the persons or one of the entities is a consumer, then any voluntary consumer association registered under any law for the time being in force, the central government or the state government, the central authority. Central authority comes under Chapter 3, which I shall be dealing with shortly. One or more consumers where there are numerous consumers having the same interest. So we have something akin to Order 1 Rule 8, representative, litigation possible, and class action also possible under the new act. In case of a consumer being a minor, his parent or legal guardian. So in this context, and with this, let us also just see what exactly is taken in by unfair contract, unfair trade practice, and restrictive trade practice. Unfair contract you will find at section 246, 2 subclause 46. Unfair contract means a contract between a manufacturer or trader or service provider on one hand and a consumer on the other having such terms which cause significant change in the rights of such consumer, including the following, namely, requiring manifestly excessive security deposits to be given by a consumer for the performance of contractual obligations, imposing any penalty on the consumer for the breach of contract thereof, which is wholly disproportionate to the loss occurred due to such breach to the other party, refusing to accept early repayment of debts on payment of the applicable penalty, entitling a party to contract to terminate such contract unilaterally without reasonable cause, permitting or has the effect of permitting one party to assign the contract to detriment of the other party, imposing on the consumer any unreasonable charge, etc. This is an unfair contract. In this context, I'll make one thing more clear. Unfair contract can be challenged before the authorities constituted under Chapter 4, the different consumer commissions. But the threshold is the state commission, because going by the jurisdictional clause, only the state commission and above, that's the national commission, can look into allegations of unfair contract. Just keep that in mind, because if you go to a district commission alleging unfair contract, it may not lie there because it essentially lacks jurisdiction to deal with that. Now let us see unfair restrictive trade practice. That is section 2, surplus 41. Restrictive trade practice means a trade practice which tends to bring about manipulation of price or its conditions of delivery or to effect flow of supplies in the market relating to goods or services in such a manner as to impose on the consumers unjustified costs or restrictions, and shall include delay beyond the period agreed to by a trader in supply of such goods or in providing the services which had led or is likely to lead to rise in the price. Any trade practice which requires a consumer to buy, hire, or avail of any goods or, as the case may be, services as condition precedent for buying, hiring, or availing of other goods or services. And finally, unfair trade practice. It's a large section, it's a big section. I don't want to read the entire thing, but I'll just give you the highlights. Unfair trade practice means a trade practice which, for the purpose of promoting the sale, use, or supply of any goods or the provisions of any service, adopts any unfair method or unfair or deceptive practice, including any of the following practices. You find almost anything and everything under the sun, including any false advertisement, any offers being made, non-issuance of bill even. Bill, for that matter, has now been included in the rules also, what should be the ingredients of the bill, and it is a right of the consumer. So in this background, let us first see the class action. Class action comes under Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is Central Consumer Protection Authority. Why is it created? Let us see. The central government, etc., to regulate matters relating to violation of rights of consumers, unfair trade practices, and false or misleading advertisements which are prejudicial to the interests of public and consumers, and to promote, protect, and enforce the rights of consumers as a class. So if there is a misleading advertisement, if there is something that affects a class or a group, you can definitely go there, no fee to be paid, no locus standi to be proved, nothing. And they can, the authorities constituted both at the central as well as the state level can sumo moto take action as well, because they are empowered to do that. Now, if you go further in the section, what you will find in that chapter, it has got an investigative wing, and the district collector of every district is empowered to act on a complaint or on a reference made to him by the central authority or the of the commission of a or a central authority or a commission of the regional office. That is, every state has got a regional office. Now, inquire into or investigate takes in search and seizure as well. Yeah, the authority, the district collector, can enter any premises, search and seize. Such drastic powers are given. Now, what is more important is that there are three authorities. At the lowest rung, we have the district collector, then we have the commission of regional office, then comes the central authority. For the first time in Consumer Protection Act, we can see punishments running into lakhs and even life imprisonment incorporated. It was not there in the 1986 Act. So powerful and drastic are the provisions of this Act that if any spurious food or now the definition of goods, or earlier it was goods were goods as defined under the Sale of Goods Act, that is movable properties. Now, any movable property and food. So it is in addition to the Food Adulteration Acts, we are available. We are blessed with another platform or a forum wherein we can ventilate our grievances regarding this. Wherein, if it is shown by search and seizure or by investigation and inquiry conducted by these authorities under Chapter 3, that it was of such a nature that it did cause death or may cause death, up to life imprisonment can be given. So Chapter 3 will have to be read along with Chapter 7 of the Consumer Protection Act. Chapter 7 deals with offences and penalties. So if you look into this act, many a times what happens is that we get confused because the same terminology used, complainant, complaint, etc., etc. So we might feel that these powers are vested with all the authorities. No, each and every authority in their own pigeonhole, they are given powers, and those powers they can exercise. And this penalty and offences and penalty clauses contained in Chapter 7 is directly linked to the action and directions that are being given and if violated under Chapter 3 of the Consumer Protection Act. Now, for the first time, the manufacturer and the endorser. Now, anybody who endorses a product just cannot say, believe me, I know that this is such and such product, or my personal experience says that. Nobody would dare to say, because then the endorser is also equally liable and culpable under Chapter 3. Don't get again confused. Let us not rush to Chapter 4 for consumer commissions, because we find now cases coming before consumer commissions alleging that such and such actor or actress should be made liable. To what extent that can be done, I got my own doubts. This being an open platform, I leave it to this enlightened audience also to think about it. But definitely under Chapter 3, it can come out. Only way that endorser can escape is that he did exercise due diligence and verified the claims made by the product and manufacturer or the person for whom he is advertising, and he was convinced. That's the only way he can escape. So, this complaints prejudicial to the interests of consumer as a class. Any complaint which says that there is an act or a product or a service which is prejudicial to the interests of the consumer as a class, in writing or in electronic form, can be filed. You can file it before any of these authorities, equally effective. If it is district collector, it should be before the district collector in whose jurisdiction the action has been taken. But as far as the state commissioner, or for that matter, central authority is concerned, no question of any territorial jurisdiction. Now, one more aspect is that Section 94 is also there. That comes under miscellaneous. Let's have a look into it. An additional power is given to the central government for the purpose of preventing unfair trade practices in e-commerce, direct selling, and also to protect interests and rights of consumers. The central government may take such measures as in the manner as may be prescribed. So, over and above all these specific provisions, an omnibus power is given to the central government to take such measures, so they can take recourse to this provision when enacting or doing some action. Now, coming to the chapter of interest, as far as we are concerned, because of course the other chapter is necessary, it is not properly used, or it is very, very rarely and barely used. I implore each and every one of you to see the possibilities and the scope of Chapter 3 read with Chapter 7 for furthering this novel cause. Now we come to Chapter 4. Chapter 4, where the authorities are the district commission, the state commission, and the national commission. These three authorities were there in the old act also, 1986. It was called as district forum, the state forum, state commission, and the national commission. The changes that has been brought about is very drastic, and this essentially is for ventilating individual grievances, and of course representative suits can also be filed, because if you look into the definition of a consumer, that is where I started off my presentation by looking into the complainant means a consumer, any voluntary consumer association registered under any law for the time being in force, the central government or the state government, the central authority, one or more consumers where there are numerous consumers. Now, Section 35 is the provision by which a complaint can be filed. I'll come to the hierarchy and the jurisdiction, but before that, let us understand the limitations, because when we are indulging in any activity for the protection and preservation of the consumers, the disadvantaged, the marginalized, let us be sure that we do the action properly, we take the action properly. See, all the definition contains different variety or authorities, etc. But when it comes to filing of a complaint, it's very interesting. Just see section 35. A complaint in relation to any goods sold or delivered, or agreed to be sold or delivered, or any service provided or agreed to be provided, may be filed with a district commission by, then it gets confined. The consumer. Consumer is only one of the entity under complainant. To whom such goods are sold or delivered, or agreed to be sold or delivered, or such service is provided or agreed to be provided, or who alleges unfair trade practice in respect of such goods or services. Then comes any recognized consumer association, whether the consumer to whom such goods are sold or delivered, etc., is a member or not. Then one or more consumers, but there are numerous consumers having the same interest representing the central government, the central authority, or the state government, as the case may be. An interesting facet is that the authorities constituted under Chapter 3 can by themselves come to the district forum, district commission, state commission, or the national commission and be a complainant. That is provided for in the statute. But as far as an individual is concerned, it is confined to a consumer who does this, or representing a consumer, etc. There, let us see the definition of consumer. Consumer is under section 2.7, I believe. Yes, 2.7. Let us just see the definition of a consumer. Consumer means any person who buys any goods for consideration which has been paid or promised, or partly paid and partly promised, or under any system of deferred payment, and includes any user of such goods other than the person who buys such goods for consideration paid or promised, or partly paid or promised, etc., etc. When such use is made with the approval of such person, but does not include a person who obtains such goods for resale or any commercial purpose. Then hires or avails of any service for a consideration which has been paid or promised, etc., etc., beneficiary of such service also, but does not include a person who avails such service for commercial purpose. So let us see. Goods, services. One who purchases or uses it with permission. Services, one who avails or the beneficiary of the services. But when it comes to filing under section 35, it is the consumer who has purchased. It is the person who has availed, unless you allege unfair trade practice. There is some sort of restriction intentionally or otherwise in the enactment. And earlier, a purchase of goods, even though it's for commercial purpose, but if it can be shown that it was for earning his livelihood by means of self-employment, then he comes out of the exclusion clause and he would again be a consumer. The same thing was available under 1986 Act for availing of services, which is now conspicuously absent in the new act. So if it's availing of service or hiring of service for a commercial purpose, even if it could be shown that it is for earning his livelihood by means of self-employment, the benefit available for purchaser of goods may not be available to the hiring or availing of service. Now, you got a broad picture of what all can be done. Now, how do we fit this into our new the topic? See, any fraud perpetrated or any way in which the consumer rights are affected, Chapter 3 definitely applies, and Chapter 4 applies if the person agreed, comes under the definition of consumer. I hope I made myself clear to that extent. And for that, we have a three-tier system. We have the district commission, the state commission, and the national commission. The beauty of the new act is that I would dare to say that there is no limit, or pecuniary jurisdiction has now been made unlimited as far as the district commission is concerned. Then you may ask, no, we find that in the act, it is up to 1 crore. And by the notification which came earlier, though confined to 50 lakhs, it's only up to 50 lakhs. But if you reread it, it is the amount paid or the value of the goods or services, value of the goods or services paid alone is what is considered. The quantum of compensation, the component of compensation is not taken into account while computing pecuniary jurisdiction of these commissions. So what happens is that, to cite an example, I go to a hospital, I get myself treated for maybe 10 or 15 lakhs. Something goes wrong. I believe that it was on account of some negligence on the part of the hospital or the treating doctor. I claim 10 crores. I claim 50 crores. I claim any number of crores, it can be before the district commission, because the component of consumer compensation is not taken into consideration while computing pecuniary jurisdiction of this commission. While earlier in 1986 Act, three things, price paid and the compensation was included. Now the compensation component has been eliminated. So it is a blessing for the consumer, maybe at times bit counterproductive, but still I'd say that you need not go to the higher authorities when the compensation claimed is on the higher side. That is regarding pecuniary jurisdiction. Pecuniary jurisdiction, though, even if you have the latest Bear Act, if you purchase it, you will see that the compensation, the pecuniary jurisdiction is shown as 1 crore. Why? Because the act was not amended, but utilizing the proviso to that specific provision, a notification came in where it says that the jurisdiction has been now limited. Earlier, it was 1 crore and 1 crore to 10 crore, etc., etc. Now, up to 50 lakhs, mind you, again, it is the 50 lakhs is the value of the goods or the value of the or the hiring of services, whatever amount you have paid, and not the compensation component. And as far as the state commission is concerned, up 50 lakhs to 2 crore, and anything above 2 crore, you'll have to go to national commission. And I don't think that any original complaint would usually come to the national commission, because up to 2 crore, if you are to give a if it's the value of the good or services, it cannot be and need not be an ordinary consumer, I believe. But anyway, let us see. That is a provision. Now, another interesting and most important change that has been brought about, which is very beneficial to the consumer. We have been talking in the earlier sessions about cyber frauds and entities outside India, etc., doing things. And we are finding it very difficult whether where the status of the contract is or where it has to be filed, where the cause of action arises. All the provisions already existing are retained, like you can file a complaint where the cause of action arose, you can file a complaint where the opposite party is resident. New thing has been added. You can file a complaint where the complainant resides or personally works for gain. Justice to the doorsteps. It is more like saying if you are occasioned to look into intellectual property laws, wherein copyright, etc., where the complainant or the petitioner is, same thing has been imported to the Consumer Protection Act. So territorial jurisdiction need not be a botheration at all when you are filing a complaint. And as far as pecuniary jurisdiction, I believe unless and until the consideration paid by you is more than 50 lakhs. For example, another example for easy understanding is that you take an insurance policy. The premium paid is maybe 20 lakhs, 50 lakhs. But if the entire industry or the loss sustained is running into crores, you can go to the district court. Need not run into the state commission. So any fraud that has been perpetrated on you, you can have the consumer complaint fought out in your own backyard, and that too without any botheration of the pecuniary jurisdiction as far as compensation component is concerned. Now, another interesting aspect is that regarding the fee payable. Let us see what the fee payable is. And fee payable, again, mind you, is not on the compensation. Fee payable is only on the value of pecuniary jurisdiction aspect when you calculate. Up to 5 lakhs, nothing. Above 5 lakhs and up to 10 lakhs, rupees 200. Then above 10 lakh and up to rupees 20 lakh, 400. 20 lakh up to 50 lakh, 1000. 50 lakh up to 1 crore, 2000. Then 1 crore to 2 crore, 2,500. Then it goes on up. And the ultimate, if it is above 10 crore, the highest amount that you may have to pay is only 7,500. So I think that will give you a picture of how cheap it is. And it is speedy in the sense like it maintains that it is to be time bound. It has to be finished if there is no defect in goods to be examined, etc., within a period of 3 months or otherwise 5 months, etc. That has been taught in. So this, and earlier there was a problem. We had section 25 and 27 in the earlier act for implementation. Now we have 71 and 72. 71 gives the pass. 71 and 72 gives teeth to the order passed by the different commissions. Both criminal and civil powers are granted. The commissions have the powers of a judicial first class magistrate if they want to execute taking request to that pass, or Order 21 of CPC has now been incorporated into the Consumer Protection Act. So all the powers that are available for a regular civil court to implement or to execute its orders are now made available to the consumer for implementing its orders and awards. And under Section 73, it's only a limited appeal that is provided, not much scope for interference during the execution stage. And one another important aspect is that, unlike earlier times, a complaint cannot be dismissed for default, and there cannot be an ex parte mere order, because the statute mandates that a decision has to be rendered, or rather the dispute has to be resolved or settled on the basis of evidence brought to its notice, or rather the complaint has to be decided on merits. So once a complaint is filed, there is only way it can culminate. It has to be a final order on merits, whether the complainant cooperated, the opposite party disappeared, etc. And one another factor which has to be kept in mind is that the constitutional bench of our country, the Apex Court, has said that you have got only 30 days plus 15 days for filing your version. Thereafter, there is no way you can have a defense possible. So that also accelerates the process by which an unscrupulous opposite party may not unnecessarily delay or protract the proceedings by saying that they require more time for filing the version or the counter. So here we have a very, very, effective machinery, if not misused, but properly used, can become a very effective, tool in the arsenal. Now, what all can be brought under? For example, service. There have been a hue and cry about different services to be excluded. Medical services are excluded, or lawyers should be excluded, or some others should be excluded. But that cannot lie in the mouth of anybody. Why? Because Section 1(4), Section 1, subclause 4 is very clear. Save as otherwise expressly provided by the central government by notification, this act shall apply to all goods and services. And the definition of service, that is Section 242. Service means service of any description which is made available to potential users and includes, but not limited to, the provisions of facilities in connection with banking, financing, insurance, transport, processing, supply of electrical or other energy, telecom, boarding or lodging or both, house construction, entertainment, amusement, or the purveying of news or other information, but does not include the rendering of any service free of charge or under a contract of personal service. So anything and everything is included. And one word before I conclude regarding what exactly is deficiency. Let us have a look into the definition of deficiency. That is Section 211. Deficiency means any fault, imperfection, shortcoming, or inadequacy in the quality, nature, and manner of performance which is required to be maintained by or under any law for the time being in force, or has been undertaken to be performed by a person in pursuance of a contract or otherwise in relation to any service, and includes any act of negligence or omission or commission by such person which causes loss or injury to the consumer, and deliberate withholding of relevant information by such person to the consumer. So in this context, I would say that filing of appeals from orders of the commissions have been made even more difficult. Why? Because earlier, an aggrieved opposite party could have filed an appeal by remitting 50% of the amount awarded, or 25,000 when it is from district to the state, or 35,000 or 50%, whichever is less if you are going from state commission to the national commission. Now that cap has been taken away. So whatever is awarded by the state district commission or the state commission, if the opposite party wants to go up in appeal, 50% of that has to be deposited, as mandatorily deposited, even to have the appeal numbered. So I'd say that the act has been given the tooth and nail, and a proper utilization of this. Now, in the context of the topic, it can easily be, if you superimpose the things, misrepresentation or indulgence in anything. How can we bring bank, etc., for fraud? Because if deficiency says that if there is any fault, imperfection, shortcoming, or inadequacy in the nature, they are supposed to warn us. The RBI regulations are there. the consumer rights are there. If there is any violation, if there is any misinformation, non-giving of suppression of information, or not doing the due diligence, or not taking appropriate steps to prevent such frauds, etc., regarding banking, financing, insurance, or services, all these will expose them to the adjudicatory or dispute redressal mechanism contemplated under the Consumer Protection Act. So unless and until they warn the consumers of the possible risks, safety measures, protocols, etc., all of them will be liable. So to conclude, I'd say, friends, we have got a wonderful act. And of course, the Supreme Court has said that a proper legislative impact assessment or study has not been done while promulgating or implementing this act. Maybe it has got its own, any new baby will have some teething problem. So that is all it's for us to proactively participate in making this act more effective. And I'm sure that all the stakeholders, if they come together, this act can be made a wonderful instrument for getting social justice. I'm not trying to tell you that you are going to vanquish all the opposite parties or manufacturers, traders, etc. No, we want a level playing field wherein they respect us, we also respect them. We get good services, we pay them what they want. Simple as that. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. We have a lot of questions in the Q&A box.
Let me see. Yes.
Starting with a question of Rajendra Singh on the MRP prices.
Which is the first one I was wrote off my mobile phone.
No, sir. Let's go down. What if the amount charged is more than MRP on the price provided on the website, and the website screenshot and receipt for money charged are available?
Yes, unfair trade practice specifically mentioned about, for one thing you understand, you'll have to understand is that pricing as such will not come under the Consumer Protection Act. For example, I can send a lawyer notice for 10 rupees, 10,000 rupees, 10 lakh rupees, or 10 crore rupees. Nobody can complain that saying that, no, the other lawyer or the other doctor or other person is doing it at lesser rate. But if there is a statutory, like you said, MRP, or if there is a specific agreement between the parties on a particular amount, overcharging is an unfair trade practice, and it is a deficiency in service, and it can be complained. Absolutely no issues.
Next question is also by Rajendra Singh. He's asking, is a district collector as good as the district or state forum?
It is not a comparative analysis. Both have got their own avenues of action. District collector, of course, is effective in his realm, and district forum and state commission, etc., are effective. One is not a substitute for the other.
Next question is from Shankar B. Please explain the relevance of locus standi for complaints under Consumer Protection Act.
That's what exactly I meant under section 35. Who can file a complaint? There, again, I'll just reiterate that as manner in which complaint shall be made, even though a complaint can be filed, it is said. And complaint is defined as anything made by a complainant, and complainant, different persons are narrated. But if you want to, if you don't have a locus standi, you should be either a consumer, or you should be espousing the cause of a consumer as an association, registered or otherwise, or you should be the central government or the central authority or the state government, as far as you have to go to the chapter 4 authorities, that is the different commissions. But going under chapter 3, none of this is no question of locus standi. But Consumer Protection Act, if you say, it contains both the authorities. If you specify the authority, if it is the authorities under chapter 4, you will have to come under the definition given or the parameters given in section 35.
Next question is, there is a provision for having a grievance officer as per the Consumer Protection Act. What are the implications if such grievance officer is not provided or does not respond at all? Additionally, are the educational institutions providing online education from India or abroad who have taken money from Indian students, consumers, also liable to have a grievance officer and meet all the stipulated conditions?
See, that provision for having grievance, I mean, wherever the statute says, mandates, again, you need not go any further. I mean, let us not miss the forest for the trees or trees for the forest. If you just see, what is it that you can complain? Either defect in goods or deficiency in service of any description. Now, what is deficiency? We have read it once, but we'll read it once more so that it will be very clear. It is under 211. It means any fault, imperfection, shortcoming, or inadequacy in the quality, nature, and manner of performance which is required to be maintained by or under any law. If there is any law, if there is any rule which says that such and such thing has to be, forget about grievance officer, anything, any law for the time being in force, or has been undertaken to be performed by a person in pursuance of a contract. So either it is statutory or it's contractual. If there is something like that, and if you don't provide, then it becomes deficiency. Deficiency can be complained both before the chapter 3 and chapter 4 authorities. But to come under chapter 4, you should have the added qualification of being a consumer as required under section 35.
Next question is, what are the ways to handle challenges due to exceeding the 2 years limit to file a complaint?
You need not worry much about it. Unlike civil litigations wherein limitation, that's the end of the road. Like we used to say that the right is not lost, the right is there, but the remedy is lost. But in consumer fora, if you can show reasonable excuse or cause for the delay, there is provision for delay condemnation even beyond the period as provided earlier under section 24A and now provided under the new provision of 2 years. There is delay condemnation provision. If you got a reasonable excuse, acceptable excuse, legally acceptable excuse, then the delay can be condemned.
The next question is, what is the role of mediation? Can it go against the consumers, particularly when the forum office and respondents, mostly a big company, have a good cohesion?
Mediation is what you call a conciliatory process. A new chapter has been added. It is also made mandate that once a consumer complaint is filed, once it is admitted and the court feels that there is a scope for mediation settlement, it has to be referred for mediation. Only issue is that there is a mediation rules wherein it is said that certain things cannot be sent for mediation, including medical negligence cases, etc., etc. That is, I'll just refer you to that. There is mediation rules also. I did not touch upon that because it did not concern the topic that we are with which we are concerned today. Okay. We have the Consumer Protection Mediation Rules 2020. The new chapter is referred to chapter 5. A new chapter has been added: mediation, establishment, etc. The entire procedure protocol. Then the Consumer Protection Mediation Rules 2020. Then matters not to be referred to mediation. The following matters shall not be referred to mediation, namely the matters relating to proceedings in respect of medical negligence resulting in grievous injury or death, matters which relate to defaults or offences for which applications for compounding of offences have been made by one or more of the parties, cases involving serious and specific allegations of fraud, fabrication of documents, forgery, impersonation, coercion, cases relating to prosecution for criminal and non-compoundable offences, cases which involve public interest or the interest of the numerous persons who are not parties before the commission. Mediation is provided. Why? Because instead of relegating the parties to the protracted process of this dispute resolution, or rather adjudicatory process, if it could be shown that the area of dispute or difference is very short, and if a third party, a sensible third party sits in between and put these two persons across the table, it might be over. That is the way it is. And one more better thing, or the best thing about mediation settlement is that it being an settlement on a mutual understanding, no appeal will lie. So you need not worry, that will be the end of the case.
I'm not sure how relevant this question is to the current discussion, but Rajendra Singh asks, are advocates and lawyers covered under Consumer Protection Act, and can RERA related issues be also raised under CPA?
Yes, these are covered. And regarding the lawyers, it is still before the Supreme Court. But as of now, DK Gandhi's case, lawyers are covered. And on the lighter vein, I'd say deficiency in service is what we allege. Unless and until we lawyers say that we are not giving any service but only disservice, we may be out. Otherwise, I think we all come under the definition of consumer protection. And regarding RERA, it is known as the doctrine of election. The party can elect either to go to RERA or to come to consumer protection. The volition is squarely covered by the Supreme Court decision, both. I mean, as far as lawyers are concerned, the matter is at large. It is the final verdict has not come, but there are no stay orders or anything. But as of now, you can sue lawyers also.
The last question is by Shankar V. He asks, can violation of principles of natural justice by PSU banks be termed as deficiency of service?
This violation of natural justice is, we call it as irreducible norms of judicial behavior or right to be heard, audi alteram partem, etc., etc. Instead of thinking in terms of this fancy language, just go to the definition of deficiency. If the act which you are complaining to be in this what do you call cliche, natural justice, etc., etc. If it comes under the wordings used in the definition of deficiency or defect, you can complain. Otherwise, no.
That's it, sir. Thank you so much for this very informative session. Thank you for accepting our invitation and delivering this wonderful speech. We'll move on to the last technical session, which is on the aspect of apps, fintech, and criminal procedure. We have two speakers for this session. First speaker is Mr. R.S. Shashikumar, who is a practicing chartered accountant, whose specialization is in corporate advisory services and is an expert in tax, management, auditing, and accounting. Second speaker for this session is Mr. Rohit Kamath, who is the head of the corporate and commercial practice at Rex Law Chambers, Bangalore, and associate company secretary. He is also an impaneled counsel at the Karnataka Biodiversity Board and is also a consultant at CEERA since 2018. I welcome both speakers to the session. Over to you.
Thank you, Gayatri. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Padman sir. I think it was quite an enriching session that you discussed about how the consumer forum can be used as a relief. And the previous speakers as well, they have actually given across a very brief insight as to how these online frauds or financial or economic related online frauds take place in India. And with our session, we would just like to have a jugalbandi, like how Sairam sir generally suggests, rather than having one speaker. So we have decided to have a joint session where myself and my colleague CA Shashikumar would actually be taking you through the various nuances that lies in with regard to apps, fintech, and the various aspects of frauds. I'll just be sharing my screen. Just confirm to me if it is visible. Are the slides visible?
No.
Now?
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. So the first particular aspect, I think when we speak about the area of financial frauds that are happening online or economic offenses that take place, one of the things that brings across as a curative aspect is the modus operandi as to how it is being done. Now, before we move on to certain nitty-gritty aspects, let us first understand how the Indian landscape operates and how it is going about. Just a moment. I don't want to play all my cards at once, just like how online scamsters do it. So that's the reason I just wanted to make a small change. So this is the first aspect that, which I wanted to bring about is that the faceless and paperless incorporation process, which is, sponsored by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Now, this is one of the first and foremost things that you need to keep in mind as to how online frauds take place. Shashi and I have been in this business of incorporating companies for almost a decade right now. And we have come across various aspects as to how these fraudsters come across and reach out to you while going ahead with the incorporation process. Now, if I would look at the participants that are there, I'm sure that few of them are budding lawyers who have also come across these portals. I would not like to name them because it would be amounting to defamation. But there are these various online portals that offer you an incorporation at a very lucrative price. Say about 3,000 to 10,000 rupees, you will have a company incorporated. Now, this is one of the particular aspects as to why many of these scamsters are able to get through easily. Now, first thing and foremost, these kind of business services are not prohibited. Even law firms give these services. There are a lot of these law firms who actually provide for online incorporation services. Some of the times, generally we do not have a face-to-face interaction with the clients that we incorporate for, unfortunately, because given the globalization landscape that is there, most of the communications happen over, a computer, like how this webinar is going about. So none of you know whether I'm pretty sure that few of you might not have met me in person, but you quite clearly know that, okay, somebody named Rohit Kamath is coming and speaking to me. How do you know my identity is true or not? Fortunately for the advocates, you have something called the Bar Council of India, which gives you a registered number. For a chartered accountant, you have the ICA website, which gives you a CA registration number or the firm registration number. But what about foreigners? How do you keep track of any foreigner who is going to go about with the incorporation process? Now, that is where the catch-22 situation lies. When a foreigner comes and tries to do business with you, you quite clearly do not know what's going about. I had a client who was based out in US, and he was approached by Reliance Industry. Okay, so this is the particular aspect that came across, and fortunately, he was working across with us on certain projects that were happening in Gujarat. And he comes to me and says, Reliance has actually taken interest in our particular group, and I've actually got an email. Now, if you look at the particular domain name through which it was sent, it was a Gmail ID. Okay, so that is one of the particular foremost aspects which we as due diligence advocates, we try to identify as to what is the genuineness of the particular communication. Now, if you look at the particular website that this fraudster had developed for in the name of Reliance, it was absolutely flawless. There was no particular way as to how you could say that this is a fraud website. Okay, of course, and one of the particular aspects or nitty-gritties through which we go about is also looking at grammatical errors when these fraud websites are created. Now, if it is a particular website which is developed by a group like Reliance or anyone else for that matter who is genuine in what they do, I'm pretty sure grammatical mistakes would definitely be avoided, right? So most of these fraud websites have a lot of grammatical errors that are done. Maybe not on the first or foremost pages, that is your home page may not have a lot of grammatical errors, but try and read a little bit more, in a little bit more. Now, in this particular aspect, which the case that I was speaking about, there was an error which was done in the About Us column. He had mentioned himself as a person who had done his graduation from one of the leading IITs. But unfortunately for him, in that location, there was no IIT at all. Okay, so that is one of the things which helped us identify as to whether the particular person is a fraudster or not. Second mistake that he did was working with another particular entity called NASSCOM. You have these National Association of Software Companies. And fortunately, I had happened to have an interaction with one of the directors with NASSCOM, and the world is a very small circle. You just need to reach out to people to understand whether the transaction is genuine or not. We just wrote to them saying that, see, he's using your logo over here. Kindly let us know if he's even authorized. So if suppose he was actually associated with Reliance and he's using the logo of NASSCOM, probably there is a chance that, gives across a benefit of doubt. For us to identify whether this is a genuine person or not, we do not just generally go on the aspect of grammar alone. We also carry out certain other diligence checks. Okay, and this second diligence check, NASSCOM director clearly writes to me in the email saying that he is not associated with us. You may please proceed to take any legal action against him if you want. So this is a particular premise that made us certain that this person has no correlation with Reliance at all whatsoever. But if you look at it from the genuineness, all of us, think that, okay, the grass is greener on the other side. The first and foremost people who get scammed on the internet or through the online sources are those who have little or no awareness. Now, you may know that, some of the times when you use a popular name, you tend to get acquainted immediately. If I take the reference of, say, let us say Sairam sir, I'm pretty sure that I'm immediately going to get across an access at the outset. That is what a Russian journal did. The Russian journal put across Professor Sairam sir's name as one of the chief editors. And a lot of professors across India have been scammed because of that, saying that wherein they have had to make payment of 10,000 rupees so as to ensure that their article is eligible for submission. Now, these are the aspects as to how scams take place on the internet. Now, coming back to your faceless and paperless incorporation process, if you look at it, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs has made a completely online platform. Okay, so it is the SPICE route that we take across. So SPICE, simplified pro forma for incorporation activities. So we go about through the SPICE route and we submit all the documents. Now, once this documents is submitted, what happens is there is a paperless, transition that takes place, and you get a certificate of incorporation. Now, one of the mandate that under the Companies Act is that you need to have a local resident as the director of the particular foreign entity. So that is one of the mandate that is required. Now, how do you go about taking who is the particular Indian person? With that, I think Shashi would like to identify that how these persons bring about an Indian shareholder or a director on the board. Shashi, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Rohit. Yeah, you have started the session.
Shashi, I think you're on mute.
No, not on mute. Can you hear me?
Very well here, Shashi. No problem.
Yeah. Right, thanks, Rohit. You have started with the right aspect. After all the law-related session previously, and now we are trying to share our experiences, professional experience in this, how this cyber fraud evolved over a period of time, especially during the COVID. Now, this is the time where the cyber fraud, especially the online cyber fraud, became such a huge, where even the government is still planning to making a roadmaps and taking several steps to stop this cyber frauds. And most importantly, how this foreigners, we all know by this time, even the participants might be knowing that who is behind this cyber frauds, especially with related to cyber frauds in relation to apps and loans. So the main masterminds and all the people who are managing this is somewhere out of this country, somewhere in Indonesia, Philippines, everywhere. So how these people are sitting there and utilizing their technology and resources and grabbing the opportunity to fraud people in India, citizens of India. First and foremost, their modus operandi starts with incorporation of companies. So, as you said, the incorporation of companies require residents of India to be part of, to be shareholder and directors initially. So, what these people do is, because I also like to give one incident where we came across such kind of experience, because there are a lot of steps taken by government, including the police department. I had an opportunity to be a guest and speaker in one of the program initiated by CID Karnataka. So I got to know the insights and the modus operandi of most people, where this also includes. So to make it more interesting, I told you this facts. So these people targets those who are unemployed, or those who are doing a very less income jobs, where these victims tends to earn more money, but without having proper connections. They get these messages by stating that you have been offered a so and so job or part-time jobs, but for this we need your KYCs, and they take their KYCs, and also they say you will be promoted as a director of the company. And if we hear that we have been promoted as a director of company, then we all be happy without knowing the consequences. So they will be willing to give their PAN card, Aadhaar card, and also OTP, mobile number, everything. And by this information, they incorporate company by making them as shareholder. And after after opening the bank accounts, everything, they need control of this bank accounts. So what they do, they take internet banking access from these directors or shareholder directors directly, and they will be operating that. And after some time, they need complete control over the transactions, so that even these directors or the directors or any authorized representative in India should not take advantage of that. So what they do is they change the directorship from residents to non-residents, because during the incorporation the procedure is difficult, but post incorporation the procedure is quite easier. So that is how the foreigners come into the picture. This is one aspect. And the other aspect is, though it is not mandatory for them to be here, what they do, they create shell companies. Each resident Indian can become director in maximum 20 companies. So what they do, they keep two individuals and they take information, basic KYCs from them, and they incorporate to 20 companies from them, from their KYCs. And as you said, yeah, most of the professionals and lawyers, without knowing that this is a trap, they give their professional services without knowing that, and they incorporate companies. Later on, after few transactions, they stop the activities of this company by the amounts will be shifted to somewhere else, that which we will be discussing in coming slides.
Another particular aspect, I think, which Shashi was trying to bring about, is once this incorporation process gets over, how bank accounts are opened. Now, if you look at it, the incorporation process has made it mandatory for you to have bank accounts. And these bank accounts are coming across through phone calls that we get across once the company is incorporated. And several times I have actually got client calls wherein they keep criticizing, saying, Rohit, have you shared my phone number with any banker? I think this was not expected. I literally try hard to explain to them, saying that, initially I was not aware where the data breach was going about. But fortunately, when we did about 3 or 4 incorporations line about 2 years ago, we realized that it was the data breach was happening through the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Because as soon as the company gets incorporated, the clients start getting phone calls over phone calls. Okay, and that's one of the particular aspects which is quite a particular aspect of data breach and an intrusion into privacy, because most of the times these personnel who are giving their data for incorporation processes are generally HNIs. And when they formulate a company, they go about giving across their personal sensitive data, including their phone number and others, because of which they start receiving phone calls from these telemarketers asking them to open a bank account. Now, that's one of the particular reasons which makes it further more easier. And these calls are received because opening of bank accounts are all target driven. Okay. And because they are target driven, I'm sure that even Shashi had initially reached out to certain banks, wherein when one of the new banks came across in our particular locality, both our offices were banged across by personnel asking us to open our current account with them. How did they get that we had a running business? How did they know our turnovers? That was quite a very particular aspect of shock that both of us had, when we were about these particular banking processes. Information is being transmitted from one particular financial institution to another without us knowing. I do not know from where the data breach is taking across, but somewhere I think the RBI is unable to plug the hole on this particular aspect of data or privacy breach. Now, with regard to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, yes, this data process is being given across because a lot of times these companies go defunct because they do not have a bank account. One of the particular, it's like a double-edged sword. One way, if I say that the Ministry of Corporate Affairs should stall this process, I have had an instance where a company went into strike off because it could not open a bank account. They had no idea that they had to have a bank account. They've been in operation for about 9 months in time, and then they still do not have a bank account. And that was one of the particular objections that, which the registrar also brought in and took across an action. So these are instances which you come across as a particular hindrance that is put across. Now, once these banking officials start reaching you out, they try to take as much as information as possible. Now, with the aspect of WhatsApp and everything that's come across, and also during the COVID time, it peaked, the number of scams peaked at large because social distancing was the protocol and you did not want to meet people anywhere. So as such, documents were being exchanged left, right, and center over social media platforms. And because of which several bank accounts got opened on various shell companies with the data that is used of these Indian personnel. Now, if you look at it, one of the particular modus operandi that they used are with regard to these gullible, greedy, and naive victims, like how Shashi mentioned across. Now, if you look at who are these personnel, they would be students who are looking to earn a passive income. They could be homemakers who are just browsing the social media and find that, oh yes, looks to be a nice source where I can make income. What do they do? Now, currently, I think about 2 days ago, I was also quite shocked to see an Instagram post, which is a sponsored post too, wherein it says you can also make a company. All you need is a company incorporated under the NCA. This was what the particular post said. Now, I wanted to share that particular post over here, but I do not know the genuineness or the integrity of the person who put that post. So that is the reason I refuse to do so. But you can definitely find across such kind of aspects wherein people are promoting these kind of activities. Now, if you look at it, it's easy, right? So I just have to give my PAN card and Aadhaar card to someone who comes and reaches out to me, and they give me a fixed sum, maybe around 50,000, or they say that, okay, on a week to week basis, I'll give you 5,000 rupees. Okay, this is what the particular gesture is. Now, if you look at give across a sum of 5,000 to a person who is a salaried employee, probably he would say, oh, okay, I'm not interested in this. I think I would prefer my privacy more. But if you go and do the same with a person who is a vegetable vendor, who is a person who is driving an auto rickshaw, to a person who is working in a DVD store, do you think that they will refuse? Now, these are the kind of people who have been scammed. Now, these are the kind of persons who have been in jail, and let me tell you, they have been arrested and they've been kept under custody for over 90 days till now, and who are still unable to get an anticipatory bail or a regular bail, despite having not committed any particular financial fraud. Now, this is one of the particular aspects as to how these naive victims get brought into the racket of online or economic frauds. How are they also able to do it further? Because of the rise of co-working or shared workspaces. Now, earlier, there was a requirement that you needed an office to start a business. Okay, today, with the rise of co-working and shared workspaces, you no longer need a proper fixed building or a particular apartment or a villament for starting your business. All that you need is a signboard which says the name of your company. And this is one of the things that is in the rise, and especially in cities like Bangalore, Delhi, Mumbai, they are on, an Uber rise that I can put across. You would find that every second building is a co-working or a shared workspace. Now, one of our clients was also a co-working space, and unfortunately, they got pulled in by the enforcement directorate because about 7 to 8 companies which were registered with them were all, these fintech companies which were committing these financial frauds online. Now, what is their fault? Fortunately, they had the entire documentation created. They had the entire details as to who is the person who is given an NOC. They had physical signatures on documentations. They had taken across NOCs from the particular persons. And they had also demonstrated before the enforcement directorate that the NOC that was granted by them was only to one such companies, which has been fraudulently being used by all the other 7 companies. And this was how they were able to, get out of being framed in the FIR or the charge sheet is how, because they had a proper documentation. Now, let me give you a scenario. Had they failed to maintain this documentation, probably they would have been named in the FIR. Probably they would have also been accused of having carried out all the frauds that these companies carried out. Now, one of the reasons why you may feel that I'm discussing this is, please note, your tenant could be a fraudster. If you're leasing out your premises to a company and you happen to see that they are just a 1% or a 2% company, please carry on a little bit of due diligence to just understand what their business is. Okay, there's not much of a particular aspect. You can just ask them to share a copy of their financial returns. Your annual financial returns is a public document which every company files. And there is no harm in them sharing a copy of it to you. If they're a newly incorporated company, ensure that you see the person who is named as a shareholder in the company. Go to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs website, pay 100 rupees and download the incorporation forms. Do a little bit of ground search. You will be able to know who is the shareholder in the company. Ensure that you have a physical face-to-face meeting or an online meeting with such shareholder before you rent out the premises to that company. Now, this is one of the foremost things that you need to do, because all the shareholders of the 8 companies that we had to interact with, none of them even knew that there was a company incorporated in their name. But they've been rotting in jail for about so many days, because the amount of financial frauds that have been leveled against them is close to around anywhere between 15 to 25 crores. And the total amount of scam that is involved is running close to around anywhere between 125 to 150 crores. Please note, in a scenario of that nature, probably any person who is roped in will be a suspect, right? So that is the gravency with which economic frauds or financial frauds are taking place. However, it is only because these personnel who are carrying out these financial frauds have been able to make use of the loopholes that is there in each of these systems that is put across on your screen right now. The faceless and paperless incorporation process, the target-driven banking processes, the rise in co-working spaces, and also the aspect of gullibleness, or might I say greediness, of the person involved in the scam. Now, anyone who comes to me and says, please take this additional money and do this service, obviously I would be tempted towards it. Please note, my friends, there is nothing as such as free money, especially when there is any free money coming from a stranger. You can expect free money from a family or friends, but never from a stranger. Any stranger who is giving you free money is definitely up to something or up to no good. So please be aware of such kind of fraudsters while you're going about it. Now, with regard to fintech and rise of scams, the first thing that which I wanted to discuss was on the credit or lending apps, which I think Shashi has a better perspective to share with. Shashi, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Rohit. Yeah, as I was mentioning in previous talk, how this modus operandi starts. It all starts from creating an entity and then targeting the customers, targeting the victims, I can say, and how they take out this money out of India. It is a big process which we try to enlighten here with a few of the examples and the processes they adopt for this. One of the way they scam is lending apps, credit lending apps. So how does this works, and what is this lending apps? Do all the lending apps are created to fraud the people? No, but most of them. Yeah, because during COVID there were n number of lending apps, which is operated by very few people who is behind this, because each fraudster, as far as the police information is concerned, each fraudster has had at least 8 to 10 loan apps, which is operated by single entity. For example, if they create one shell company, they will be able to operate multiple lending apps. How is it possible? It was possible through payment gateways, because they were linking all the payments, receivables or payables through payment gateway, where the victims or the borrower of that money don't know from which company they are receiving, from who is paying that. All they have is the app. But how this apps works? Yeah, let me tell you. For this apps to operate, they will be having data. It is very easy to get a data bank. Of most of the users, like for mobile users, they will, even my mobile number will be having with many people now, which I will, I even can't expect them to have my mobile number. For example, I will be receiving a lot of messages. Even now, I'm just opened my phone and searched what all the scam messages I've received. We all think that we are safe from cyber fraud, but that is not the truth. We all are, prospective victims for the cyber scam if we have not been scammed by now. So how are this working? Through lending apps. How this lending app is working is, they send you links by stating that we offer you 5,000, 3,000, 10,000. They don't go beyond 10,000 in most of the cases, because it is risky for them to recover. And yes, whenever we need money, we usually ask our friends or family. And most of us we will not have that freeness to ask friends every time. So what we do, especially the salaried people, that is their targeted victims, when they are receiving salary in the first week of the month, by end of the month they will be spending all the money, and they will be short of a few thousands. At that point of time, they increase the promotions to lend money by this lending apps. So what that salaried employee who has exhausted all his money think, okay, let me borrow this 3,000 or 5,000, and the interest and processing fees will be very high. For example, if they lend 3,000, they will deduct 600 to 800 rupees as processing fees and interest, and they will give you only 2,400. But still, that person who wants to borrow that, he will be willing to pay that 600 to 800 instead of going and asking their friends and family, whom he will be, whom he wants to keep that privacy, or keep his reputation high with them. So he tends to borrow that one. He will repay, and then again he will borrow for 5,000. He will repay, and once he does that one, definitely 600 per 3,000 days, more than 20 to 20% or more. Every time he is paying 20% interest for a week. It is just for a week or 10 days maximum. And he will be to pay one loan, he will be borrowing from another lending app. To pay that, he will be borrowing from another lending app. This is what created problems for many borrowers, and this gets accumulated and goes to lakhs without his knowledge. With different lending apps, it goes to lakhs. Now, to pay this, it is difficult for him. How this borrower, how this lending apps will recover from them? They have tool for that. What is that tool? While registering in this lending apps, you would have given consent for all the terms and conditions, and that terms and condition includes access to your contacts, access to your social media accounts, and access to read your messages, everything. So once they have this access, you will start getting calls from, you don't know from where you are getting calls. So you will get calls to recover, to pay back that. If you don't pay, they will start harassing you by saying that I have your number, papa, daddy numbers, because they will have access, and they will tell you that number also, so to scare you. You will pay. Next time also you will pay, but all the time you can't pay. And then they will go to the extent that they will have access to your social media accounts, and they will take out some pictures of that, and they will morph that photos, and they will send to you privately and state that we will upload this in your social media or your friends social media accounts. So then this has led to suicide also in Hyderabad, which we came across, and we were, completely shocked. And this is how the lending apps are working. And where does this money goes? That will come. We will explain in the latest part of this one. And employment offers and interview on digital payments. Yes, this employment offers, again, one is lending, and other one is employment offers. See, for all this, the main asset for them is data bank. They will get it from many telecom operators or local vendors, supermarkets, or wherever we go, we will be registering our mobile numbers, and it is actually sold. It is not for their benefit; it is actually sold. This is the practical this one. How these employment offers are made. For example, I'm just reading one. It is from QP XENDER, the sender code name. Part-time platform recruitment promotion manager. Daily income 1,000 to 50,000 rupees waiting for you to join the consultation. WhatsApp, HTTP WA.me, so and so number, and the number starts from +5592. That is different countries number. And another example I can give you is this employment offer. Simple part-time job. Only accept 10 people. Use mobile phone to earn 2,000 rupees every day for 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes, you can earn 2,000. That is what they are offering. Contact WhatsApp number, and they give some WhatsApp number. This starts from 63, I guess, some Philippines or Chinese number. And most of us don't even know what number it is. If we just Google it, we will come to know. And if they want to offer, why do they offer through WhatsApp or Telegram? First, they start with WhatsApp and they take you to Telegram. They say, okay, this WhatsApp is, we are inconvenient to use this WhatsApp. So we'll go to Telegram, which is more secure, which can't be tracked. So this is how the employment offers are made and make you to, register for one portal where you will give your information again, and they give you task to earn money. So they give you that you have to invest 100 rupees or to 300 rupees. That will be very small amount initially, and they give you one task, and after completion of the task, they will give you margin for that, like 10% or 20%, and you will be tempted for that, and you will invest further, and then you will make some more money. Initially, they will allow you to withdraw that, and before withdrawing, it will be credited to your virtual wallet in that particular website. So it will be credited there, and then they will allow you to withdraw 90% of that by stating some condition that you have to do next transaction. You have to do next transaction, then you have to withdraw that. And this keeps piling up, and it goes to lakhs. I've seen, I got calls from many people stating, sir, what has to be done? And when I hear to them, they say they started with hundreds, they borrowed from their friends, family, everywhere, and they have invested lakhs of rupees. Sometimes they have invested more than 20-25 lakhs. Who has not, got any job? He has borrowed from many people and he has invested in that. And later on, when he tries to, withdraw that money, it is blocked. They can't withdraw this. This is how they are working on. And by the time they give complaint, and you have heard in the previous, in this session from previous speakers, how this, FIR and withdrawal, getting refund, everything works. Sometimes, not sometimes, most of the times it is difficult to get back that money, because there will be case filed. They will make someone as accused, and later on they will be, proven not guilty, and some company account will be frozen, and charge sheet will be filed. Lot of procedures, the lawyers will be able to tell this procedures. And by the time you get money, the difficulties you face for that, and still it is not guaranteed. So what we can create awareness is to always doubt your messages, always doubt your offers you get. Even though you get it from genuine company, you doubt it, verify that, and then you proceed with. That's all. Over to you, Rohit.
The next particular way as to how they go about is because the online presence and identity is kept as a facade. These entities are able to maneuver into the particular aspects. Sometimes we tend to get these calls and everything as to so and so we are calling from such and such entity, and the moment sometimes we as humans we are susceptible to these kind of emotions, and somebody could be going through a financial pain or a financial loss. Could be looking for an employment opportunity. Someone could actually be genuinely wanting to purchase a plot of land or something of that sort, and they fall prey to these kind of schemes. Now a couple of things that's doing about rounds is your shared or co-owned farmlands. I think this is also a new kind of a particular aspect that's going about, which says that why don't you invest in 50,000 to 5 lakh rupees and also co-own a particular 300-acre farmland. Now, this is a kind of a particular aspect, which looks to be too good to be true a scheme. Of course, yes, there is a chance that, most of these particular aspects would definitely give you access to the farmland or anything. But have you actually verified whether you're really becoming the owner of the land, or are you just a mere paper tenant? Now, these are aspects that, probably would require a lot of diligence while you're going about in the aspect of investment. And another particular aspect that we've come across is with regard to your wrongful transfer on UPIs. Please note, you might unfortunately, sometimes, if you're fortunate or unfortunate, you might receive 10,000 rupees onto your phone and immediately the caller may say, can you please transfer the money back? I transferred it to you by mistake. This is also one of the particular instances wherein we get across. Please note, even though I've received such particular calls from clients, unfortunately, providing them a remedy for it is something, which is next to impossible. Because at the most, I can tell them to lodge a criminal complaint and I can help them in drafting the criminal complaint. But very rarely would they actually receive back the money from these scams. It's next to impossibility that you would get back the monies. One of the particular instances was he was a first time graduate from his family. He had joined a leading a leading technology company in Bangalore, and his parents were actually these workers who were working in construction projects. So he wanted to immediately rise up to a bigger stage. He was getting about 90,000 rupees a month. I'm not saying any less. It's not any less. It's quite very lucrative a job. He was getting about 90,000 a month, but somehow he wanted to be as affluent as his peers who were there in his company. So he wanted to go about the particular aspect of investing in Bitcoins, which Shashi just pointed out. He invested in money, borrowed funds to invest in money, took loan from credit lending apps, okay, and invested in the company, because in the first 3 months of his investment, from 1 lakh, his money became 5.5 lakhs. So what did he do the second time? The second time he invested 10 lakhs. In about a period of 6 months, his investment of about 6.5 lakhs became 15.5 lakhs. So what did he do? The third time he was investing in, he put 15.5 lakh rupees. So how much was his total investment? 30 lakh rupees. Okay. And he ensured that he made one of his friend also invest in it, because of which he got a bonus of 10% more increment. Now, this is a particular modus operandi. At the outset, he comes to my office and he says that I am owed about 45 lakh rupees. And this is besides the marginal interest and the profits that he has gained, which is close to around, about based on his app data, he was set to realize close to anywhere between 85 to 95 lakh rupees. Now, we go about searching the particular entity. The company is portraying itself to be an entity registered in UK. We tried registering a complaint with the UK department as well. It's not that we did not do anything. We did go ahead and we tried to register a complaint. And unfortunately, the particular complaint got registered as a report, incident report. In UK as well, they have a lot of these scam cases, which generally tends to not realize at all. So what they do is they have a particular report wherein you can report the nature of the company and inform what is the kind of app that is involved in and give across all the details. At the end of about 3.5 days, all that we could go and do was an incident report, because the UK authorities categorically told that this entity is not at all registered in UK. Only because you have a UK address, we are taking up this initiative and registering this complaint. But there is a high chance or a probability that you might not see this mature into any further steps. So these are the particular aspects which bring about, and yeah, that's about the crypto trading that we spoke of. What is the legal recourse? Now, unfortunately or fortunately, we do have television that takes across in India, which brings about to you. So Savdhan Rahe, Satark Rahe is one of the particular popular dialogues which is put across in this particular television channel. Now, what is the legal recourse that you can take in case you are involved in a scam? Now, the first thing is, on the criminal recourse alone is what I would suggest, because filing a civil case might be next to an impossible thing, because there's also court fees that's involved, recovery of dues, unless you are able to identify the person. When can you identify the person? Only when the police authorities investigate. Now, you cannot have private detectives go about with the entire scheme, identify what's happening, where this particular person is located. That only happens in movies. In real life, unfortunately or fortunately, you cannot locate the scamster unless the scamster is residing in the same premises or location or area where you are already involved in, or you have or happen to have the good fortune of finding him in another place. That is next to impossible that may happen. So your first and foremost relief would definitely be going to the jurisdictional police station wherever the particular victim resides. You could be the victim, or someone known to you could be the victim. Please approach to wherever the place the victim resides and try to register a complaint report or an FIR. You might be next to lucky if you are able to register an FIR, because generally the police refuse to register an FIR. So try to draft or get a complaint report registered, because generally whenever these fraudulent cases happen, even though they are non-bailable or even they are warrant cases, generally the police tend not to take it on record. They try to just admonish the particular victim, ignore the victim, and refuse to take on record any of the complaints, because these complaints never tend to see the daylight, and it just becomes a pending number in their list of cases, which will in turn affect their promotion and other aspects. So they generally tend to refuse to register it. Okay, and this is something that I'm speaking out of experience and out of discussion. So you would be next to lucky if you're able to register an FIR, and if that you're not able to do it in the first instance, I will suggest you to write the same complaint and forward it to the jurisdictional superintendent of police. This is the next step that you need to do in case you are unable to register your complaint. The next step that you have to do is you have to write to the jurisdictional superintendent of police. Generally they give you a GCR number. Okay, in Karnataka it is called GCR. In few other places it could be having a similar number. Okay, so this GCR number is generally used across as a particular aspect which states that yes, we have received your complaint, we are looking into it, we are taking the next steps forward. Okay, and wait for 14 days. Do not just write the letter to the superintendent and expect you to have a GCR number on the very next day. Please wait for about 14 days. Okay, and after 14 days, even if you still don't receive the GCR number, go and inquire it in the jurisdictional SP's office. Say that on such and such date, I had sent this complaint by means of a registered post. I have still not received any response from the office. Please ask them for clarification. And even after that, you don't receive it, you have the proof of having given the complaint through registered post. Approach the magistrate and file a PCR. Okay, the magistrate will then only take cognizance of your complaint. Otherwise, if you directly approach the magistrate, probably the magistrate will not even look into it in light of the Supreme Court's guidelines. The Supreme Court has clearly mandated whenever there is a particular non-cognizable offense that is involved, okay, so you have to approach the superintendent of police and try to get a GCR number or any other similar aspect, and only then you can proceed further. Clear? So this is one of the particular aspects. The second paramount is, what if your data was used to commit a cyber crime? You have not been a victim of a cyber crime, but you have been portrayed to be one of the perpetrators of a cyber crime, or one of the persons who has committed the cyber crime. What do you do then? Please note, unfortunately, if you find yourself in such a scenario, I am really, you are in a very helpless situation. You might have to prove your bona fides time and again before numerous authorities. Okay, so, and we have had clientele who have been in such a scenario. The scenario that they are in is extremely helpless. They get calls from the Gujarat Investigation Department. They have got calls from the Telangana Cybercrime Department. Okay, they get calls from the local Bangalore Cybercrime Department, stating that you have been involved in this such and such crime. And the places that they have been called for or summoned are instances where they would never have even been. So we had one more client who was from Chennai, who was actually asked to appear before the Kolar Cybercrime Department. All because he assisted a client in getting cryptocurrencies. Now you could be a crypto trader. I'm not sure who the audience is. Now, if one of you as the audience is a crypto trader, how do you deal in crypto trades? You get bank transfers made to you, right, to your personal account, and then you use that fund to purchase cryptocurrencies and you transfer to the crypto account of the other person. There is no interbank transfer that takes place, correct? That is how it goes about. There is no particular tracement that you have paid back to the other person. The other person runs away with the money. Now, who is this other person, you may ask? The other person is the same person who incorporated the company during the commencement of my lecture. They form a company, they receive funds into their bank accounts through, say, a third person who is not at all related with the company, using their KYC details. They receive the funds. The funds are then operable by this foreigner. He sends these funds to the crypto trader. The crypto trader in turn purchases cryptocurrencies and transfers it back to the foreigner's cryptocurrency account, which then becomes untraceable. Who are the ones trapped? The one whose data was used to form a company, the one who acted as director in these two companies, which were the fraudulent companies, the person who helped them convert the INR into cryptocurrency. Now, all of these persons have been working on a very small bait of percentage. Now, if I am advising a company, for me, the company's data is all that matters. That is the unfortunate scenario as to how we transact today. We never look behind who is behind the company. Please note, if you are a crypto trader, if you are a person who is lending representation services, especially as advocates, as chartered accountants, as company secretaries, please note, you could also be made accused under the Money Laundering Act. There has been a clear intimation by the ministry about 1.5 months back, stating that if you are not able to prove the source of funds of your client, you will also be booked under the Money Laundering Act. This was a clarification that was given to majority of the company secretaries and chartered accountants. And this is something that I generally recommend. Even when we are onboarding a client, we definitely do a little bit of due diligence on who the client is. We try to identify whether they are a genuine person or they are an ingenuine person. Okay, so this is something that I would recommend all of you to go about. And if at all you feel that you are under a particular cybercrime trap, the first thing is you may require an anticipatory bail, because the police can come and at any point in time exercise their powers of arrest by means of a warrant. So this is one of the particular aspects which you need to keep yourself aware with. In case you're not being careful with your private data or records, please note that you are showcasing yourself to a wide range of legal formalities and hassles because you have not been cautious enough. There is no such thing as free money. Please be extremely careful when you're transacting online. The second thing is criminal processes may come across from different jurisdictions across India. Okay, it's not just in your local residence, but it could happen anywhere in India, because since most of these documentations and registrations are paperless, the perpetrator could be anywhere in India misusing your documents. So whenever you're signing and giving your Aadhaar card or your PAN card or any other identification document, sign across the particular document with the purpose for which you're giving. Okay, if you're giving a copy of a driving license to receive a courier, please write document shared for receiving courier across the particular document, so that the person receiving it cannot duplicate your document without it being identifiable. You know, most of the times banks reject documents if it's a photo of a document. Okay, so it's impossible to replicate a duplicate copy or modify a duplicate copy without it being noticed. Right? So these are the particular aspects that you can make use of, because tomorrow if you are made accused of a particular offense, they will first look at the document that you have submitted. You can clearly show, see, this looks to be a little bit of a fabricated document. There is some deletion that has taken place here. I had written something on my document is something that you can positively prove before the authorities and acquit yourself from all the offenses that you have been held, charged against. Few ways to keep safe. With this, I would conclude the session. Shashi would also put across a few instances that how you could keep yourself safe is try and use these staff corp services by the Department of Telecommunications, Government of India. Use My Aadhaar app to alter your Aadhaar card details and other aspects. And if there's anything that you need to note, you can definitely reach out to us. And Shashi, I think we can take the question and answers and then reach out to them.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. Rajendra is asking across as to how to avoid the fraud or malicious issues arising from DIN, and especially when email and phone number and address go on to the public domain as soon as the DIN number is applied for. Shashi, I think your insight on this point.
Yeah, Rajendra, thanks for the question. See, this DIN is very secured now. Though they might have your DIN number, it is like PAN number. Though they might have your DIN number and email ID and phone number, without you being part of that, they can't, misuse that. Since DIN, everything requires OTP now. If they want to incorporate company using your DIN, they need your KYCs. Apart from that, they need to verify your PAN also. They have to link your PAN number also to that. And also they have to, generate OTP, which you will be getting. And more than that, they require your DSC, digital signature certificate, which can't be, which is next to impossible, I can say now, because of the recent upgradation they made in the DSC procedure. It is next to impossible to make duplicate DSC of yours, digital signature certificate, because it requires your video verification along with your original KYCs to be shown, and it takes at least 15 to 30 seconds to 90 seconds sometimes to record that video. So without your authentication, it is highly impossible.
Another aspect over here with regard to the DIN is, unfortunately, I think the Ministry of Corporate Affairs is too free with the information that is there. We've already had multiple service providers who have been involved in the Ministry of Corporate Affairs portal, because of which we as professionals have also faced a lot of difficulties. Unfortunately, as soon as you enter your DIN number in any of these particular places, immediately your address also flashes. So that is also one of the aspect of privacy concern and everything. But like how Shashi pointed out, it is impossible for any person to misuse your DIN for incorporation purposes, because Currently, it is all OTP verified. So without the OTP that is received on your mobile number or email ID, it is impossible for it to be duplicated. I think that's the one particular aspect.
These all are recent upgradations made by EMCA. It was not the case earlier, like pre-COVID.
Correct. The next question that we have is it mandatory to wait for 14 days? Why is the time period is there? Okay, please note here, one of the thing is when you're writing into the superintendent of police, I think this pertains to the question on registration of a complaint. Please note, when you're writing it to them, give them 14 days of time. It's quite impossible for anyone to revert to you within a day's time. Okay, and it is highly impractical for you to take, because in case a GCR number is registered and they have failed to communicate it to you, or communication was made but you have not been able to receive it because of some pin code related error or something of that sort, on those circumstances, it is just to avoid clerical errors. There is nothing as a mandate that you have to necessarily wait. But if you don't wait and you approach the magistrate in a rush to register a FIR or a particular complaint before the magistrate, then in those circumstances, the magistrate might ask you, why have you not waited? Because in case the particular jurisdictional police comes and says, your lordship or someone, this particular aspect was already taken and it was in pipeline. It was supposed to be sent, but somehow it got missed out. There was a clerical error. In those circumstances, you will only be delaying your, outcomes. In case it has been registered on its own, it is easier for you to go ahead and take an action. In case you want to go through the PCR route, you might necessarily have to engage the services of a lawyer. You will be incurring certain additional expenditures for having your complaint registered. And I'm not saying all of these services are free, right? So every particular service that you engage from a lawyer, you definitely have to pay fees to them. Right? So like how you don't get free money, lawyers also don't give you free services. There would definitely be some catch involved, unless it is coming through your legal services authority, which is a pro bono service, or the lawyer out of it says that, okay, I'm willing to provide you pro bono services. Only in those circumstances, you can expect something for free. And do not get yourself entangled in a lot of these paper documentation. Right? Try to be a little bit patient, because I'm sure it is since you have lost the money out of your own free will, okay, and it has not been robbed from you or anything of that sort. Please note, allow for the authorities also to support you. The police authorities generally go through everything in detail. It's just that they are also human in nature. Okay, imagine you having to report to around 100-150 complaints ongoingly and being wrapped by senior officials. Okay, please be a little bit of concerned. Try to appreciate them when they say, kindly give us a little bit of time. Of course, you don't have to sleep over your rights. If they are just being, you do tend to understand when an officer is genuinely asking you for time, and when an officer is just ignoring you or plainly sidelining your grievances. You can genuinely know it, right at the face of it. So please try to be a little bit appreciative of the efforts, because since this goes by way of a registered post, waiting till 14 days will not, aggravate your case, because you have done all your steps. Rather, the magistrate will upfront take your case if you have waited for about 14 to 30 days before approaching the magistrate. Because this is all in light of the Supreme Court's directions, wherein magistrates have been asked not to register your non-cognizable cases unless the particular local jurisdiction police station has been approached. Yes, with this, I think I would conclude our session, and I would leave the floor to Gayatri for any conclusion.
I just want to thank all the participants for attending today's webinar, and I express my heartfelt gratitude to all of the speakers who spoke today. Thank you, Jaydev Reddy sir. Thank you, Jaydev Mangal sir. Thank you, Shyam Patman sir. Thank you, Rohit, and thank you, Shashikumar sir. It was a wonderful session. I hope that all of the participants gained a lot of information from today's session. And to answer Rajendra's question as to whether we'll be planning more sessions, yes, we will be. Last month, we had a workshop on right to safe abortion. Today, this month's topic is financial frauds. And next month, we are planning a hybrid mode workshop on medical negligence from doctor's perspective. So yes, we'll be planning more sessions, we'll be planning more webinars and workshops in the coming months. And we hope that all of you will actively register and participate in these events. Once again, thanks everybody for joining. We'll see you in the next event.
Thank you, Gayatri. I think you've been a wonderful host. Thank you for being in throughout the session. I think we will take leave now. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, Shashi, for joining.
Okay.